Mr. Kelly,
Here.
Mr. Poe,
Here.
Mr. Matt,
Here.
Mr. Collins Green, here. Mr. Robinson.
Here. That's okay.
Ms. Fodor is noticeably absent at this point. I would entertain a motion to allow her to participate electronically as she is at a conference for work. COVID rules are over, so we need to have a vote of the board to allow her to have electronic attendance. So,
Second.
any other questions or comments? Ms. Clerk, can you call the roll, please? Trustee Kelly.
Here. Mr. Poe,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Mr. Collins Green, Mr. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
The motion passes. Welcome to the meeting, Ms. Fodor.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right, could you stay, I'll stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Good evening, Ms. Lyons. Do we have any signers to speak this evening?
We have no signers.
No signers. Fantastic. Before you, you have the meeting minutes from November 2nd, 2023. If you guys could review them at this time. We'll entertain any changes or corrections.
One on page 7, congratulations for Georgia Marcella Drendel. I did that, not trustee Fleming. She's not taking credit for that.
You guys look alike, sorry.
Yeah, I know that.
We're just going to town over there with all kinds of stuff. I just,
Well, if we're doing that, I was not trustee Fodor, wishing happy Veterans Day to everybody.
Yep, that
There,
was
but
it.
for the credit, I don't know.
Everybody thought going into these minutes that trustee Fodor was pretty thoughtful.
I was gonna say, goodness. This is the anniversary. And they pick you- that's why it's serious.
Yeah, that's why that's there. Thank you.
All right. Be more thoughtful at the next meeting with these orders.
Who's taking credit for the last one? No, no. That's Veterans Day from.
I got it.
Any other changes or recommendations, trustees from the village clerk?
No.
No? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes with the changes that we just talked about.
Second.
Questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Yeah, I gotta make sure we get these right. Mr. Matt.
Aye.
Ms. Collins Green.
Aye.
Mr. Robinson.
Aye.
Ms. Fodor.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Post.
Aye.
6-0, motion passed.
Good evening, Mr. Hedges.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. At this time, we would ask your attention, please, to a presentation from Crown Community Development regarding comment easements in the front yard versus rear yard easements. There's no action requested. Dan Olson is with us tonight from Crown, and also Rick Murphy is here from Lennar. Rick is the Vice President of Land Development here in Hampshire, and we met just a couple of weeks ago, and that's when this topic came up. As you know, currently in the village, all the village easements are in the front yard. On the side, on the house side of the sidewalk is where we put the only thing there is our B box and our service lines for the water and sewer. Our utility lines, water and sewer mains are in the parkway. So right now, what ComEd is requiring since 2020 is that the developers put them in the front yard, and that they, on the house side of the sidewalk, I'm sure Dan will talk a little bit about this. The challenge is that when both Prairie Ridge and Oakstead were submitted, the plats were submitted, they were submitted with the public utilities in the rear yard. And that's possible, ComEd will allow that, but then the developers have to put in the conduit, and it costs them. Dan's going to talk about how much it costs. So if there are any basic questions about the concept, I think it's pretty straightforward. This is probably going to happen everywhere at some point in the future. It's a question of when. So Dan, with that introduction.
Thanks, Jay, and thank you. I appreciate appreciate affording me the opportunity to speak regarding this issue. Give a little history. As Jay mentioned, this is 2020 when ComEd, actually before 2020, when ComEd first proposed this concept, the front yard concept. There's a lot of development going on at the time, obviously, but it was something that we found out about, and to be honest, we opposed it as well. Because probably for the same similar reasons to why concerns that you may have, aesthetics primarily, right? We met with them, we talked to them a lot. The development community in general was, they spoke out against, putting them in the front yards. But then, so ComEd forced ComEd to come back and say, okay, we'll put them in the backyards, but you need to put it in conduit. Well, that wasn't really a good plan because it adds a lot of costs to the installation. Before I get to the cost, there are a few, I've come around since then and come to realize that, there are a lot of benefits to putting them in the front yard. One of them being topography. Quite often we've always struggled with putting, the PEDs and transformers in the backyard. Some backyards there's a lot more topography than in the front yard, obviously where the streets are. And so that can be challenging at times. Access. Probably the biggest issue with ComEd. Main reason they want it in the front yard. They have difficulty getting to it in the backyard, particularly if there's fences in place. In the front yard, it's easy access, they get to it quickly. And then conflicts. So I've served on a lot of design review committees, so we approve fences, for our residents in all of our communities. And we always struggle with every homeowner when they put a fence in. There's always a conflict with that fence will be right on their property line or that transfer, property line. So they always want to box it out so their neighbor has that pedestal, right? So we struggle with it. Sometimes they have no choice because it's right on the fence line because we require them to be close to the property line for that. So that issue goes away in the front yard. But then the other, every comment requires in their easement language that if they do need to get access to those areas, they need, put in the pedestal under transform in, they can come in and take out that fence or that landscaping, whatever, leave it on the ground, walk away. It's homeowner's responsibility. Put it back. And we fought that in years past, but we've never been successful in getting them to acquiesce in that issue. So that's another benefit of putting it in. There's a benefit to the village. Street light cables obviously come from those transformers and pedestals in the backyard. Cable needs to go between the homes and goes to the street lights. So that's a lot more cable that now the village is responsible for and will need to repair in the unlikely event that needs to be replaced. But mostly it's cost. And I'm going to be very clear, why we're here. It's the cost is dependent upon the size of the lot, obviously, why the lots cost more. The configuration of the cables, right? And, each of these require 2 conduits along the entire backyard, obviously one for primary, one for secondary. But so the cost can vary anywhere from $1,500 to $3,500 per lot, depending on the size of the lot. We actually got a quote, a recent quote that from a local contractor that it's actually higher than $3,500 for these lots. And for Prairie Ridge North, 2,000 units that are up there, that equates to about $5 million just for the single family detached units. Unfortunately, that is not a cost that we can bear. So that cost would have to be passed on to the builders and who would then pass it on to the consumer. And that's a lot of money, $3,500, particularly in these age of high cost of homes anyway, but also with the interest rates as they are right now. So that I'm going to turn over to Rick since he is the builder. He can speak more to that as far as the cost goes and whatnot.
But if we have questions for you, you'll come back. Okay, sure.
Hi, thanks for listening to us tonight. Rick Murphy, Land Acquisition Manager from Lennar. I will second basically everything that you've heard tonight. I think the fight over the front yard and rear yard utility location was basically over before we even knew what was happening. It just was a proclamation that we had to have. And for a long time, we were grandfathered into it. So the plats that were approved and everything at that point were, if it was planned in the backyard, we were good to go. And I think you've seen that. obviously, we're happy to be working at James Farm with you, and thank you for your hospitality there. So I will say that, we liked it the way it was. And initially, we had concerns about putting it in the front yard as well. There are additional grading considerations that we have to make. I mean, getting it prepared. But the grade transitions are indeed a little simpler. But ultimately, I will tell you the real cost of this is about $3,500 per home site on average. That's what we're experiencing, and this is based on us, we're building about 1,500 homes a year. And if there's a misconception on how healthy the new home business is, I think you look at the existing home business and understand that part of the reason we're doing so well right now is because we have mortgage companies and a conscious decision to keep our business plan more level than taking, the dips, the bumps and the dips that goes with interest rates. The current effective interest rate is pushing 8%. We're buying these mortgages down at significant cost. So, and that's because of affordability. So we recognize that the consumer, the home buyer, is very good at sniffing out the best deals and the best bang for their buck, let's say. And they'll go wherever it takes. And so we have to kind of be aware of that when we price out communities and these kind of things. When buyers have to pay for something they don't want to buy, that's what we're up against. So they don't. They just move down the street and buy somewhere else. And the last thing we need to do is, build a community that's not successful, and like I said, we're a home builder. We're here to build homes, and affordability has been a real problem. I mean, Dan and I were just joking, remember when it cost $28,000 to build a home site? We were so far from there, it's not funny. So land development costs that we have to do, and these added things, homeowners don't buy, respect the value in that. So it's a very tough sell. And I think that's, I'll be open to questions if you have any more, but, we have concerns about that. And the affordability problem is continuing probably to get worse as time goes on.
I should mention two things. First of all, this man drove an hour and a half to get here, or will drive an hour and a half to get home tonight. So that's how passionate he is about it.
It's not a problem.
But that's how passionate he is about it, as are we. I should also say that his competitor and our other major client, D.R. Horton, also feels the same, as do most of the national builders and local builders about this subject. And she actually, Horton did provide Jay with an email.
There's a letter in your packet.
Okay, you can read that, and, pretty much everything that I said and Rick said, they concur with. So the builders, the development community, the builders are all 100% on board now with the front yard, even though we all originally were against it, but we're on board with it. And again, cost, I'd be very candid, cost is the major factor, but so are the other issues. I also agree with Jay that this is ultimately, at some point, ComEd is going to require front yards everywhere and won't even provide the option. It's my personal belief that they will require it in the front yard. And the conduit option in the backyard won't even be an option. I don't know if you feel the same way, Rick, but I'm pretty sure that's coming and that's on the horizon. So ultimately, it will get to this point, get to the point where everything's in the front yard. So
I suspect you're right on that.
yeah. So with that, we'll open up the questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a clarification for you.
Sure.
You had mentioned that the village is going to incur money if the boxes are in the back for extra conduit. Doesn't that go on to the developer or the builder? The village isn't paying to run streetlights. You have to light your project.
Yes, I apologize if I misspoke there. So yeah, we install it, we install that cable, so that is an additional cost for us. For sure.
So
but we will own the cable, at some point. And so if there is a maintenance issue, there's a greater chance of an issue longer runs, obviously, and if has to be replaced. Yeah.
Last year I had a box 2 blocks away from me, in the backyard explode and catch fire. What's gonna happen now if they're in the front and they explode and catch fire? What's ComEd gonna be responsible for as far as the amount of damage that they're gonna fix?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty rare occurrence, but it does happen, obviously. I think, I can't speak for ComEd, unfortunately, they aren't here. I can tell you, I do think, I've seen this before, and you've probably seen it as well, where in the backyard, because of topography, the pedestals and the transformers tend to be much lower in the backyard than they would in the front yard. And where, the stormwater is designed to go through those backyards, right? And if there's a catch basin or a manhole that's blocked and stormwater starts flooding, I've seen it where these pedestals and transformers are underwater in the backyard, and it freaks people out, freaks me out, right? But I think there's more of a risk in the backyard relative to that, but we could have in the front yard, sure.
And then the other thing I have for clarification, you mentioned that comment, if they have the box in the back and they have to do work on it, they can take a person's fence down.
Yeah.
That person built that fence on an easement that they knew they shouldn't.
Yep, 100%.
Okay, so it ain't on ComEd, it's on the homeowner who shouldn't have put that fence there on the easement, on the utility easement.
Yeah.
Am I correct there?
Yeah, so the utility easements are typically, 5 feet on both sides, they straddle, so in the backyard. In our design documents, HOA documents, we require that the homeowners put that fence within a foot of that property line. For one reason, because if they put it outside the easement, and the neighbor behind them puts it outside the easement, there's a 10 feet no man's zone there that doesn't get maintained, right? And they both lost 5 feet of their backyard, but it's mostly about the maintenance. Nobody goes around that fence to mow it. So that's, should they put it in there? I mean, they have the right to put it in there, but they also, when they close on their property, and if they read the easement document, they understand that if ComEd needs to do some work in that backyard, they're responsible to replace that fence.
Okay, that was just for clarification.
Absolutely.
I have a couple of questions. Mr. Hedges, first for you. Do we have an ordinance in the village that requires the boxes in the backyard?
The only thing right now would be that, no, not an ordinance that requires that, but we have our our village utility easements are in the front yard, and they're village utility easements. They're not public utility easements, so only village.
So there's no reason, there's no rule that the village has of why they couldn't be in the front yard versus the backyard?
That's correct.
Okay, so that being true, we're having a discussion tonight because the plans we approved that you brought to us put them in the backyard.
Yes.
And in 2020 is what you said is when ComEd changed it. Why was it designed with them in the
It
backyard?
was a mistake. I'll be very honest. And on the plats that were, so actually in the Oaksbed flats, there is a PUD in the front yard, right? I missed, so they were allowed to put it in there. Obviously, if you pass an ordinance that they can't put it in the front yard, but I have to put it in the backyard, it's PUD in the backyard as well. The plats that were approved recently, because everything else that we've done in Prairie Ridge was grandfathered in, and it was all in the backyard. There's a PUE in the backyard plats, but not on, so the engineers can continue that process in these new phases, which are not grandfathered in. So if the board chooses to allow them in the front yard, we'll have to modify that by actually.
Was something grandfathered in?
It's grandfathered in if it was platted and not preliminary platted, but final platted prior to the policy change. So.
Prior to 2020?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I guess my last question for you is, if you were to move the easements from the backyard to the front yard and move the boxes from the backyard to the front yard, how does that fundamentally change the design of a homeowner's plat? Do you look then to move the house back a little bit to accommodate that extra easement? That's one of the things we looked at when we were looking at easements around property lines and offsets. That's one of the things taken into consideration. And now you're talking about taking out an easement out of the back.
Yeah.
And putting that into the front. Does it just sit into the public utility easement? Does it add more feet to that? How does that work?
So the setbacks don't change at all. right? So setbacks, so the easements are always within the setback. So they had mentioned, there already is a village utility easement in the front yard within that 20-foot setback, right? So basically that public utility easement would, or that village utility easement would also allow for the public utilities to be in that same easement or an easement beyond that, but still in the front yard.
So is your plan to, sorry, I had said that was the last question, I guess I lied. Is your plan to then have in this case, the ComEd Electrical to share the public utility easement?
That is typically how it's done. The public utilities and most of the village infrastructure, the sanitary sewer, the water mains are within the right of way, right, between the sidewalk and the back of the curb, right? But there's always that public utility, the village utilities in the front in case it does go, on a bend or something like that, it goes in those front yards, or if there's some other village utility that needs to be in that. So that the village utility easement technically, usually is not utilized.
Well, except our V boxes and service lines,
Yes, correct.
perpendicular.
Yeah, and the B box is just on the other side of the property line, so it's,
But knowing that both of those things are within that easement, is it still possible then to run the ComEd and the electrical?
Absolutely. It's done all the time, and I can show you examples. And again, Jay's right, the sewer service lines and the B boxes are just beyond the right of way. I think it's required you within a foot of that right of way, so you still got the rest of that easement to those utilities. And those are, as Jay mentioned, those are going perpendicular versus parallel to the street.
So for clarification and for the record, you want to come and now put the ComEd and stuff in the front because ComEd's requesting it, not because it's quicker and easier for you, the builder or the developer, but it's ComEd's request.
It was ComEd's initiative in 3 years ago. And now they do require it in the front yards, but they do make an exception where if a builder or a village wish to have it in the backyard, then it has to be in conduit. That was the,
And the kind of put down by you, not by them.
kind of has to be put on that.
And so will you, the builder, or you, the developer, are there plans to plant certain things around all these ComEd boxes, or that'll be up to the homeowners?
Well, we wanted to gauge the village first. Rick's the builder, so I'll let you respond to that better.
I don't think we have any strong objection to a bush or anything, but I will tell you that ComEd probably has some guidelines where they don't prefer that blockage on their facilities.
Even though all the pictures that are in the package show bushes covered.
Yeah.
And they're behind you on TV.
Yeah, I would think,
Yeah, I'm sorry. So Rick, I want to be clear, this is not Rick's, this is our project in Highland Woods. Right? But it is a builder who is in.
This makes
Hampshire,
sense.
right?
This obviously, I believe this makes more sense than $3,500 of punishment from ComEd.
The issue I have is, hold on. Does anybody else on the board want to speak?
Yeah, is ComEd going to allow plantings around their utility
They allowed
boxes?
us there, right? And this is in Highland Woods. And again, but it would be the same situation if ComEd has an issue, right? If they had to come in and they could, again, same easement language, right? They could remove that bush and it'd be the homeowner's responsibility to put that. Obviously, replacing a bush is a lot less expensive than replacing a fence.
Not only that.
Now I'm going to ask the question again, and I'm kind of hoping for an answer.
Okay.
Will ComEd let homeowners build or plant something around that ugly box in the front of my home?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and they did it backyard too. And they did it there.
That's true.
It's allowed within, the easier language allows it. Yes.
We currently, I've seen it in select places around town. We do have this already in some, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm trying to find it, but I believe it.
One place is the new townhomes that D.R. Horton's building at Prairie Ridge South.
Yeah.
South of Kelly Road. They're just like this. Because the townhouses, they're on the end of the building, so they are
Right.
very much right
Adjacent
on
to
the
the
road.
street.
But no, I want to say it's either in Tuscany or it's in, and I don't know the same, the name of the neighborhood, but it's off of like Zachary, Karen, James, in that area.
Off of Jake.
Oh, on that cul-de-sac kind of looking thing on Jake.
No. But I have seen it and I can't place it right now because I've walked my dog past it at 5 a.m, but I've seen it and it struck me as odd, like, who wants an electrical box in their front yard? But that apparently wasn't their choice, so.
And do we have anything in our package showing comments, is,
Yeah, their memorandum is in there, their edict, I'll call it.
And, I do have a family member that works for ComEd and can confirm that, yes, unless
Page 16 took it.
it is grandfathered in or you have an ordinance, then ComEd wants these in the front for all of, I mean, if you read this.
They were pushing that through the legislature for the last
Right.
8 years.
They wanted it in the front for all these reasons, and basically they wanted it in the front for cost. Cheaper for them to do it, but, and if it goes in the back, then that goes on the developer and which is ultimately passed along to the consumer.
They don't need conduit now up front? They don't,
No,
They don't-
they don't require.
because it's not as much water or what?
I think they require the conduit in the back, so that they don't have to fight your fences
We don't
and
have
stuff like that.
No, we don't.
Yeah, I suspect.
If they can push cables through that without actually
they don't come
physically
in, don't come in.
differentiating. So in the front, the other thing is they have
Now, though.
really close access with the service trucks. So I don't know if it's, more than that, maybe they're getting tired of getting kicked by dogs, I don't, it could be anything.
So the rest of the state has to bend over backwards
Wow.
to accommodate Commonwealth Edison, so it's easier for them
Mhm.
and it's more costly for
It's
us.
no different than all we used to have local control over franchise agreements for other utilities like AT&T and
Mhm.
Mediacom and stuff like that. And then the state took over all the franchise agreements and did statewide franchise agreements. Control of it. It's very similar to that. I mean, it's just these utilities lobbied the state of Illinois for the changes that they want made throughout the state of Illinois, and then we have to deal with it, whether we want to or not. And I don't like the boxes in the front of the yard. I was very clear with Jay when we first talked about this. I didn't like it when they were talking about it through Metro West. I like working with you, Dan. Don't take this the wrong way, but the problem that I have with it is we sat here as a board and went round and round about the side yard setbacks and how far away the houses are, and then you look at these pictures and the whole front of the side yards in between the houses are full of damn utility boxes now, and that wasn't a part of the plan. It just wasn't a part of the plan. It wasn't what we all talked about for looks. And I understand the cost automatically gets pushed back to the consumer. I get that, and I understand that this is probably going to be the last time we are going to fend this battle off. Honestly, if this board chooses to pass an ordinance and require them in the backyards, this is probably the last development that will be that way in the village. Because the state of Illinois and ComEd is requiring it, and I don't see them going back on it. I just don't.
They're not going to. And we talked long and hard about the cost of a home for any type of home buyer. And now we're gonna put $3,500 more on top of that for that home buyer. Who's gonna buy it? You know,
Mr. Hedges, for the process. I know we're having the discussion, there's no action tonight, just feedback questions, and thank you both for answering the questions. I'm imagining there has to be a planning and zoning board meeting.
We don't think that'll be necessary. We could probably just do a plat amendment. And a simple vote by the village board.
Those don't
And
require
we-
planning and zoning.
or- No. And we wouldn't have to pass an ordinance right now. We could just refuse to approve the plans as submitted as
So
approved.
they'd have to resubmit the whole plat.
It wouldn't be it'd be a very minor change. Mr. Paulson, we've already talked to Mr. Paulson about how we could do that without.
And I defer to the lawyers in the room, but it almost qualifies as a Scrivener's error, possibly.
That's what it's been described.
Yeah, which would require any action as well. We'd still come to the board, certainly. Because it is an issue, right?
They're come to the point.
Yeah.
Yes, but we don't believe that you have to go back. P, Z, and C.
I understand where everyone's at, but bluntly, it looks like crap. And in that first picture, we've already got one of the boxes that's not blocked at all, that is just sitting out there in the front yard. The other ones have bushes and they're kind of sparse. Basically, they'll be covered if the homeowner chooses to put the bush there, they'll be covered in the summer and the early part of the fall. And then as soon as those leaves are gone, everybody can see everybody's box in every single yard all the way down. And that looks awful.
And it's not just ComEd.
These are newer houses, so, you know, they haven't been around as long, trees haven't died, you know, people haven't let their properties run down a little bit. That's gonna be an area that just sits out like a foursome, sort of thumb, on every street that you come down. And we all have a neighbor that has something out there that looks like crap, and you see it every single day, and it drives you nuts. This will be in every single yard. I have one of those, the small ones, what do we call the smaller ones? Pedestal ones in my front yard between mine and my neighbors, and the snowmobiles knocked it down. Because they're small and the snow goes really high and it's close enough to the street where it was covered. And the snowmobile, man, that person must have been ringing their ears on that one. But then it's laying down and I got a customer get, so it's just one other thing up front. So I think it was awful. I'd rather kind of test it with the legislature and see what we can do, but I understand a lot of money has gone into every legislator with huge amounts to get them to vote yes to this, but it's awful. And it's our community, and I understand, as you said, you know, we're a builder, our job is to build houses. Well, I'm a trustee and my job is to make sure that the community looks good.
Sorry.
So to turn around, I mean, my vote would be no. I'd rather say put it in the back. If it's 3,500, so be it, sorry. People are coming to communities, I know their money is tight, et cetera, but you're gonna come to Hampshire because you wanna be here for the schools and the small town and all that stuff. You're gonna come here, you're gonna find a way, and maybe you're not gonna have the upgraded refrigerator or the cabinets so that you could, you know, pay for it. And so,
Just a couple.
Yeah.
I covered your slide.
yeah, and I know it's,
Yeah.
you're stuck with it, but I
Yeah.
mean,
The shorter component that you see there, that's the transformer. So a transformer leads up to, I believe it's up to 6 pedestals. So you can see the pedestals there,
Yeah.
right? So the pedestals are, every house needs a pedestal, okay? But only one transformer, so you have one transformer every 6 houses or so in the front yard. And as far as the shrubbery around it, you know, there's shrubbery that will stay green all year long too. So we can certainly mandate something like that to make sure that once the leaves go, that you still can't see them. So, and one of the things that again, this is our community in Highland Woods. One of the things I like about it, we at times, no offense, Rick, but at times we struggle to get our builders to add more landscaping in the front yard because we want the landscaping, you know, in the front yard where everybody can see it. This requires them to do that, right? So it actually gets landscaping where they're usually would not be landscape part of the plan. So I appreciate your thoughts. I mean, like I said, I had my brothers, yeah, I'd like it in the backyard, but there is that cost and all the other issues that we talked about. But I also have come to believe that it can be shielded pretty well in the front yard.
and it will look great, right when you do it, in the first few years,
Yeah.
and then a tree dies and the person doesn't replace it.
Right.
Or it's half dead, or a bike hits it or whatever, and it sits there.
That is also something that we can require. We're actually working on our design guidelines through the HOA. That is something we can have the HOA enforce,
Okay.
making sure that those pedestals stay covered with landscape.
Okay, that's a good idea, thank you for sharing.
I know we're talking about ComEd mandating this. Correct me if I'm wrong, we're actually talking about moving the utility easement up front, which includes phone, cable, electric, it's everything. It's not just the electric.
Everybody calls comments.
So the pedestal, we're talking about electric, but there's gonna be a cable pedestal somewhere. There's gonna be
They're
phone.
all in the same.
It's all in the same.
It's all in one. Okay.
There's multiple boxes, I'm sorry, but it's multiple boxes in the front yard in some homes.
It's what you see there, right? It's one pedestal with all of the utilities going to one house, right? And then the transformer every 6 houses.
Yeah, is there? You may not know this, so, okay, if we don't. I'm looking at like this picture here. Are there rules and regulations because of the move to the front and putting boxes like this around in the winter, having people snow blow their driveway and covering these with snow? Like, is it kind of the same as a fire hydrant that you have to keep them clear and accessible, or do we know if that's a rule or regulation for the state?
I think it's not, right? I mean, if you imagine, think about the snow that's in the backyard, right? That the backyards are much less accessible and they get more snow back there, and ComEd has never required residents, homeowners to shovel their, clear the paths for their pedestals.
They're not getting, with all due respect, they're not getting 4 feet of snow on the side of their driveway because they've been snow blowing all winter.
Right.
Or the plows that come in.
And it builds up more in the front. That's why I'm just asking so that we know what a homeowner would be responsible for. Because I know like with the fire hydrants, you're responsible to dig it out to make sure that the fire department can still access it. I didn't know if that was the same regulation when they move utilities up front as well.
I don't believe it's their policy that they require the residents to clear, like a fire hydrant is much more important. Your house is on fire, right? You need it, that's a much bigger deal. But I'm not aware that it's in their policy to require that same consideration for the pedestal.
So in like your Highland Woods ones that you're showing me, the HOA, the part that you've been involved with, there's nothing that says they have to keep those clear.
HOA certainly doesn't have it because we determine.
Right, that's why.
Right, yeah, no, we don't, and I'm fairly confident ComEd is not either.
Okay.
When the transformer explodes, it'll melt all the snow around it. You won't need to worry about that.
Can I ask trustee Fodor, who's remote, if she has anything she'd like to add to this? I just don't want to forget her in this conversation. Trustee Fodor, do you have anything you'd like to add to this conversation?
Thank you. Yes, I actually have 2 questions. My first question is, who pays for repairs in the eventuality that there is some sort of, snowmobile or vehicle or what have you, that may end up damaging one of these boxes?
It's ComEd, yeah. It's, in my experience, it's always been ComEd.
Okay. And my second question is, so then will your builders be reducing the prices of the homes to pass along $3,500 in savings of cost savings? If we agree to this?
I'll defer to Rick again, but my guess is, going the other way, they won't be increasing the price of the home for this, right?
Right.
We all know the cost of a home is well beyond where we all thought it would be because of COVID, before COVID, and now the interest rates are up there. So, the builders, I know a lot of builders are offering rate buy downs just to keep it affordable. Affordability is a huge issue still, right? And it's pretty amazing what some of these homes are going for these days, right? But they're dealing with cost increases that continue to be high. They skyrocketed during COVID. They haven't come down. I don't know if they'll ever come down, but they're not going up as fast. But and then the interest rate increases just added more cost to that homeownership. So.
Yeah, we don't have unlimited pricing flexibility. We're in a competitive market, and that's the main driver. That's why I said, folks, when there's undue burdens in one community, not to blame the community, but because of ComEd or because of anything, people are shopping and they're going to go find the best that they can for their money.
I know this 3,500. That if you add that to the cost of a home, that can knock a number of buyers out of the market, right? It's 30. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it is, particularly when you figure the interest rate situation.
Very common.
The comment that I have is I just wish that I knew that this was a part of the conversation when we were talking about how the thing was designed. I think that this would have changed a lot of people's opinion about design. And I understand it was a mistake. I understand this is the law. I understand that, again, this will probably be the last one if this board chooses to be able to put them into the backyard. I just, looking at all these pictures, you talk about shorter distance in side yards between the buildings, and then you put utility boxes there, and their whole side yard is full of utility boxes that they wouldn't have had to look at had they been in the backyard.
So to your point though, President Reed, maybe this is an opportunity. Because they're gonna have to come back for a new plat approval, right? Maybe it's an opportunity to reimagine that design with this new consideration of the boxes.
I don't think that that's the path that they wanted to go down.
I'm not asking. About that. I'm saying this could be an opportunity, if that's a concern of yours, to reevaluate, okay, if we're moving it to the front and it does have that issue, what does that new potential layout look like? Just, I'm throwing it out there that it could be that an opportunity for somebody to present a different concept for those areas. When did we approve the final plat pertaining?
Oh, that was
2006.
2004.
So we never came back to that. Right?
They took it as it was.
And they were grandfathered.
And we just, I know we've approved some of the new ones, but since 2020, we've approved some of the ones over in just Prairie Ridge. Right?
Those were all grandfathered. So neighborhoods N, S, and O, K, L, and M were all grandfathered.
But didn't we just approve finals for some of those?
For R.
K, L, and M?
I'm sorry, what you approved are the neighborhoods we're talking about right now, north of Kelly Road. So those are the ones that are not grandfathered.
Because they changed the plat,
Right.
then they have to come back again.
Oh, that's right.
All of them south were already approved.
That's right.
The President
The
Reed,
plat was
The
approved.
plat was approved.
it's on me, right? And again, we worked very hard and we're very grateful to the board for considering the replanting up there to make this project viable again. And it was absolutely key to get that density increase in smaller lots for all the reasons we discussed previously. Should this have come up at that time? Yeah. But to be honest, we have so many things that we were talking about and negotiating and discussing at the time. It didn't cross my mind. Was I aware of the policy? Yeah, I was, but it didn't cross my mind. And my apologies, to the board for that. Is one of the things you probably should have discussed.
In Dan's defense, we all got caught by there was a line drawn in the sand somewhere. And I think for a while, we didn't know where it was,
It's a
I think
big
that's
part of it, right? And,
Yeah.
it's just, not a lot of development was going on. And sorry, development again, and this issue here, by the way. So,
I appreciate you guys coming and speaking to us tonight. I appreciate your long drive. I know you're not that close either, so I appreciate your long
close
drive.
enough.
Always happy to come here. Thank you for listening to us and asking questions.
And it's worth it going to the copper barrel. So, nice.
Would any of the board members like to give us an indication of how they feel about this? So staff can go back and do some research and come back and do something.
I don't wish to at this time and mull it over.
I want it back. Sorry.
I do too, but I'm not in favor of putting another $3,500 on a house for somebody that can't afford that house to begin with,
Trustee Mott, how are we feeling?
I wouldn't like it in front of my house. So I understand the situation. On the edge, but I wouldn't like looking at some of these pictures, that stuff sitting in my place like that. Doesn't appeal to me.
Trustee Kelly?
I think I would be open to seeing a new concept or reimagining of what that area could look like, should they have to go up front, if it was just a move it from back to front and no other changes. I don't know how I feel about that.
Agreed.
And for your 3,500, I completely understand.
Yeah.
My comment on that is when we did the big approval for the minimum price house in that community, it's less than 1% of the price of that house that we're talking about.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm guessing the builders will sell upgrades that are more than $3,500.
Yes.
So I get what you're saying.
Right.
I
Oh, right.
honestly do. So I'm not negating that at all.
I'm
I'm not saying I don't know where I am.
and I would like to see as you've been saying, a reimagining of the concept at no additional cost to the buyer. So we're gonna move these in the front, then I don't want $3,500 in landscaping to go to the buyer, you know? So,
All right, we will try and come up with something.
I'm sorry. Trustee Fodor? Sorry.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with the comments from the board thus far, especially trustee Robinson and trustee Kelly. We had just talked about all of those easements and what that was going to do. And, you're talking about putting these right on, right next to the driveways, basically, where, if somebody wanted to put in a basketball hoop or whatever, their kids are going to run into this all the time. And if it's going to cost them $3,500 to move that to the back of their yard, I understand that is, again, about 1% or less of the total cost. But that impacts quality of life in a way that we did not have an opportunity to consider when we agreed to how these were going to be laid out. So I'd like to revisit that.
Sorry, Ms. Rogers.
Oh, that's right.
I want to make sure she.
Yeah, no, that's great. Staff will come back with something for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, thank you.
Thank you.
Have an extra beverage for us. Or two.
Don't feel obligated. Don't feel obligated.
Come on.
Okay, necessary.
Oh, that's right, you do. So I'm gonna ask you to consider the next 4 items bracketed, as we say. You'll take separate vote, but you have in your packet, brief agenda supplement from Mr. Ray summarizing the current pending applications. And I'll defer to Mr. Would yeah, we didn't have a BDC committee, so
That's fine.
I'm just, okay, I'll defer to Mr. Kelly on this. I'll just point out that there are some questions about budget and being over budget.
Yeah, so, thank you, Mr. Hedges. For the past 2 months, the BDC, for a variety of reasons, has not been able to meet. So that's why you don't have a recommendation in this packet for these. Now, just a reminder to the board, the process is that it goes to the beautification committee, the application does, and they make a recommendation that goes to the BDC. BDC looks at it, makes a recommendation to the board. So this has been, what you're reading in here are based on recommendations from the beautification committee, just not the BDC. Now, in that conversation, or in this process tonight, and thank you, Mr. Hedges, for saying to consider these 4 together, because I think that's really important. When you look at the 4 projects in total, it puts us over budget. One of the things the board was very adamant about this year was not going over budget and taking that into consideration. And so the recommendations that you have in here are just that, recommendations. Just a reminder to the board that we can set different funding percentages. You can set standard dollar amounts. You can approve things, or you can even just say, nope, not at this time. You don't have the budget. So my ask would be, while we have the discussion for this, consider what would be the priorities of things that you'd want to have done. What do you think is most needed? That is most aligned to the reason that we have a facade program. And then we have to keep it under, if we stick to what we said at the beginning of the year, we have to keep it under $48,325 somewhere around. Right. Yeah. And since BDC did not meet, different than most times, I will also vote with the board on this, because I did not vote as a part of the BDC, so none of this represents any member of the BDC's recommendation.
Mr. Smallwell, Chairman of Beautification and a member of BDC, is here.
Yes.
Prepared to answer any questions or go through the applications if you'd like to.
Mr. Swalwell, are you prepared to kind of give us a 30,000-foot overview of each project?
Sure.
I do have a question on the cave. At one point, the BDC shot it down and told them to go back and redo it because the windows they wanted to put in so they could hang advertising in the windows.
When I read the application, it looks like they did go back, but I'll leave that to Mr. Swallow, who works very closely with all the businesses for these applications.
Thank you for agreeing to
And thank you
walk
for
us
doing
through this.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. That's partly true. The BDC never took a vote. What they did is they evaluated the project and came back with 2 recommendations. One was would you consider a different window type? And the other part was, what about all the rest of the windows on the second floor of the building? The original application only included 8 or 10, and there's 18, I think. To give credit to the Gina Ruth and her husband, they've been very receptive, like the gal with the Tatiana with the gaming place. Right away, she's like, what is it that what would you like to see? And they were very receptive. They came back with a modified proposal for the rest of the windows. And it still came back with casement windows, which is what both the beautification and the BDC had concerns with. In that it's just a solid painted glass, basically what's there now. And we had some photos of what casement windows, double hung windows could look like. And it was pretty much the consensus of everyone on beautification and BDC that they were leaning towards double hung. So they came back with a proposal for both double hung and the cost difference on the casements. And they said, if the casements cost more, and we'll pay the difference, which they did. It was a little bit more. It wasn't as much as we thought. But anyway, that being said, when the new proposal came back to the beautification, who heard it, the revised, the second time around, that's when everyone, it was kind of unanimous, it kind of changed. That concern with the type of window wasn't a concern any longer. It must be casements. Everyone kind of more or less universally said casements are fine. And I don't know if it was the willingness to work with and modify the grant proposal. I can't speak for them or what it was, but it was a different tune. Unfortunately, we didn't have the luxury of going to the BDC for the same thing. But it was at the beautification expressed concerns the first time around as well. And I took those concerns to the beautification did, and I took them to the BDC, and that's when they said, let's review this. And they were one of the first applicants this year. They came in with the first round of, there were 2 or 3. I think State Farm was one, Decay was another, and I can't remember who the third one was. But that's kind of the background on it and where we're at right now.
Mr. Swallow, when the Cape just got a grant,
They did
and when was it?
last year, I think.
As in, because we're talking fiscal years now, so.
Well, the work was done last year, so I can't really speak to what.
I don't think we awarded a grant to the Cape out of the same budget. I think.
Out of this budget,
I think
so,
it was last year, was it not?
It was a prior year.
Yeah.
That I know for sure.
It was,
It might have even been 2 years.
so the spring then, before the budget year?
I can tell you, if you
Okay.
just give me 1
I
second.
Yeah.
don't believe it was out of this fiscal.
All right,
So I'm gonna check this.
Well, let's not wait for that.
while she's looking for that, I mean, I'm just gonna say that. I had hoped last year that we could switch how we did these grants. Because while we all want to bend over and help the businesses, because I think that has done a lot for this community. I've read in the IML magazines that we've gotten, all the different things that other communities do, and was kind of shocked where, they said 25% and not to exceed $5,000, not to exceed $10,000. And we're giving 75% of whatever. So I just think it's out of control. I mean, I think the village has a part to play to help reduce costs and to incentivize businesses to do things to fix up their property. But I don't think anybody should be getting $70,000 from the village. And when you look at what we got, I mean, looking at the Cape, which is why I've asked, they're coming to look for another $30,000 almost, plus what we gave them within the last year, brings you right back.
Yes, so the check was written in November of 2022, so a year ago. And the dollar amount was $27,900.
So so you're talking almost $60,000 to one business in 365 days. I mean, they're not gonna get the money tomorrow, but that is outrageous with a budget of $100,000 to benefit as many businesses as we can. And that I don't think was what the purpose, I wasn't here when the program came out, and I believe you 100% support the beautification of the business community. But I don't think any business should be coming to the village for that kind of money. We've got a levy that we're doing today that's $1.4 million. And with the amount that we'd go over, if we gave everything as asked, You're talking 15% of what we're asking the taxpayers for in the levy, we're gonna hand to 4 businesses, 5 businesses. And I just think that's a terrible use of the money. I support giving it to them, and I mean, that's why I think last year I said we need to rework it. We need to rework how we give it, what we give, and it came back, we're gonna leave it the same. And man, I was just so disappointed at that point. Because 75%, I mean, I go shopping, if I'm gonna give a 75% off sale, woohoo, cleaning up. And I don't think that's what it is. I mean, if you're gonna get a rebate from a refrigerator, you're not expecting 75% of it. It's to help. It's like a coupon, if you wanna look at it that way. So that's my personal, about the project without going into each of the projects together. But I've gone through the numbers and I have a recommendation of, for the board to consider after everybody else has said their piece on
I'd
this.
still like Mr. Swalwell to kind of go through, and give
Okay.
us the 30,000 foot overview of the program, of each application, so that we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, can I ask though, Mr. Stoll, and thank you for always working with the businesses on these. I know that you work with them to have it be the best result with
Yeah.
the best path forward. As you present these, since we're talking about all 4 together, would you do us a favor based on the conversations you had? Even at 50%, the 4 combined put us way over budget, right? So can you provide your prioritization of the projects? That if you had to prioritize these as you present them to us, the high level overview that President Reed's talking about, how you would prioritize it. And if you're not comfortable doing that, that's okay too.
I'm very comfortable with that, and from what I recall, when the facade program was first designed and what the mission statement was and things, it was just to do that, based on the current condition that storefronts were in at the time. We all know what that was. That's what I thought the driving factor was behind the facade program, the establishment of it. And within that inventory of existing buildings before anything started, you had some that looked pretty good and some that looked not so good. So a couple of things, 2 things to just keep in mind, whether that was material choices, bad material choices, outdated material choices, style changes that have happened, coupled with the age of the building, the age of the structure. For example, a cave. It's been there, I don't know when it was built. It was either a horse stable or a blacksmith shop, and then it became the Hampshire post office for a number of years, and then Oris wound up buying it. I think you got to look at the building itself and what the outside condition is on each of these respective projects. Now, then you've got the applicant and the project itself. What do we want to do? How extensive is it? And that's the reason the caves come back twice. In fact, their program, the project last year, their application in 2022 was filled out in June, by the way, the grant application. But they were able to do a little bit more than they thought. They took on a little bit more than they thought they originally intended. It was going to be much more scaled back. After they established the budget, they increased it. And that was a good project, a good candidate. I believe it is again for these windows that are in such dilapidated condition on the building. So I think you got to look at the building. You've got to look at the choices that were made and then ultimately how ambitious they are. Maybe that's the way to put it. I'll give an example next door. Roger Larson's insurance agency. That was re-sided with aluminum siding, soffit fascia. I don't recall if the roof was done. It was done by Conroe and Sons. Darwin Conroe and his son redid that back in the, I'd say, late 80s. But really, other than just awnings for Roger's new business, not a lot's been done since then. But I was impressed with this project. I'll tell you why. Roger's been in business for I don't know how many years, but to see someone take on an ambitious project such as what he's proposing at his state or his position in his career. I'm sure he's probably going to retire within 5 to 10. So that kind of impressed me, and it's comprehensive. It isn't just a few little things. It's siding and soffit, fascia and gutters and roofing if it's so branded. They're replacing the windows in the front, new door on the front. It's pretty ambitious. So I've talked about the cave, and this grant from the cave is pretty much just the windows in the 2nd floor. Roger's project is fairly ambitious and it's quite extensive.
Stitching on State, that's one of the third ones that I met the contractor out there to find out what does it include? The most superficial thing is a new paint job on the building. That's pretty straightforward. No color change, place needs to be scraped, pressure washed, caulked, and repainted. It's all cedar, it's beautiful, old building. What drove it was the failure of the front steps, instability, post rot, decay. There were some concerns with people climbing up the steps. And then there were issues with the floorboards once you do get up on the front porch. And there were issues with the handicapped accessible ramp that runs up the outside. What it wound up being, which surprised all of us so much, wasn't really on the floorboards and the framing wasn't rotten decay. It was the fact that when it was rebuilt, which has been quite some time ago, of all things, the galvanized support brackets that they attach all the framing with to rebuild, the whole porch is brand new, all the framing's fine. The brackets rusted away, which I would have never expected. But we didn't know that if it weren't but for the contractor to come out, peel back the boards, open it up and do a thorough inspection on it. They peeled off some of the floorboards. There's a few of them that are rotten on the front porch, not a lot. Few floorboards on the handicap ramp, accessible ramp that were rotted, not a lot. But it opened it up so we could find out what truly was the underlying cause. And it brought the original cost substantially back. So hers is, I don't want to say it's housekeeping, it's safety issues, it's walkways and porches and stairs that all need to be addressed. But it was much less substantial than originally anticipated. And the rest of it is caulking, scraping, pressure washing, painting, as I said. So, so far, in terms of the criteria, the scope of each of their projects all qualifies. The cave is primarily windows. Roger's project next door is fairly ambitious. Does anyone know Roger's project in the material packet for tonight's meeting? Did you get an opportunity to see the overall, architect's design of how differently the building will look? It's fairly substantial. So that speaks to the design change on that. The stitching on State, you're not going to see much visually. It's more underlying and then superficial paint job on the whole outside. So.
And the fourth one is the sign.
The sign for Madison Insurance.
Bill, if I just got one question.
Sure.
Do you feel like the timing, the weather is an issue for all of these projects or any of them? Or is there time for the EDC to meet in December and come back with a specific recommendation that is within the budget?
The siding and roofing is weather contingent. The painting is weather contingent. So that talks about Rogers. That talks about stitching on State. The sign can be done anytime for Magnuson's Insurance. And who's the third one?
Okay.
The cave. It's not heated upstairs. Those windows, in my opinion, can be done any time of the year. The insulation is between the first and second floor. They can do whatever framing, and the only thing they might not be able to do is the masonry brickwork. The proposal includes repairing some of the failed masonry around like one or two of the windows where it's all deteriorated. And those are all the windows that have been eliminated. They're just plywood. They're framed shut and it's just plywood. So there's a little bit of masonry work that's included. So that is weather contingent, that part of it, but the rest of it.
In clear weather, though, they can side and roof in the winter, right?
Yeah, but most of them are slowing down, or I'm sure there's some that will, but
You can cite all winter long.
Yeah.
Been there, done it.
Okay.
You can cite all winter long and all the floorboards. You can do that all winter long as well.
As I said, I feel like we've kind of given you guys a puzzle to figure out, and maybe we should do a little more work at the staff level. It's your call. I'm not asking you to withdraw this at this point, but if you're not comfortable trying to pare these down.
I only have one question. The BDC was given a directive last year. Do not go over 100 grand. We're holding firm.
Right.
Why is the BDC even considering submitting
So
something
the
that's over
BDC did
budget?
not submit this.
The BDC hadn't met the last 2 months.
So it skipped the BDC.
Beautification.
Correct.
Well, as Bill has always said, Bill encourages the beautification committee to recommend based on the quantity, the quality. They don't even consider the budget. Is that fair?
That's fair. I instructed them to focus on the caliber and quality of the improvement that the facade project is going to have on the overall downtown. And I said, at this point, it's too premature to worry about costs. I mean, unless you have questions about the cost of the proposals, I'll be happy to go back to the contractor. But I said, just focus on its impact that it's going to have and let your vote or your percentage recommendation reflect that.
And in the BDC, Mr. Swell was a part of, we do talk about what have we let out already this year? where we at. Mr. Hedges usually gives us kind of a recap of how much is left. So you're right, trustee Coe, that would have been a part of the process. But I think that we as a board have that same opportunity to say, okay, that's why I had asked Mr. Swalwell, even at 50%, the 4 projects are over $15,000 over budget, right? And
So
so,
do we need to go back and notify the beautification committee that there's $100,000 period?
You mean the
No.
BDC?
Well, BDC was already given that directive.
no, I think it's on us. We can say, that's why I asked for prioritization. We can say, look, we have X amount to spend. This project fits within it. This project doesn't. So these are how we prioritize, and we'll approve these and not approve this because we're out of budget, not because the project itself isn't warranted, but maybe it needs to wait till the next budget year. So I think that ultimately, we're the ones that have to make that call anyway.
Has anyone reached out to, well, I guess, really, if we're gonna fund it 50%, it's only 2 of the projects that would put us over the cave and farmers. Has anyone reached out to any of the owners and asked, could you put this on hold till our next fiscal year, which is May?
No, we could do that.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, I mean, I would certainly like to fund all of these projects without constraints. And if somebody is willing to say, I can wait another 6 months, I'm good with that.
Well, but what if they come back and say that they're not willing? I think it's still on us to say, we think you have a really good project. We just
Oh,
don't have
right.
the funds this year. So we hope you come back in the next fiscal with the same project for us to consider. Right? I think that's on us to say something like that.
And with the cave already getting a shot at one, Farmers hasn't had one, correct? Farmers hasn't gotten any.
That's right.
No.
So them and stitching on the state because it's a structural issue, those would be at the top of my list. Wait, they've already had their turn.
Telling somebody to wait, bring it back next year, next fiscal year. It's a different bid, it's different amounts.
That's true.
And it brings me back to, they're expecting 75%. And even if it's the greatest project in the world, I don't think the village should be putting up that much taxpayer money for it. I mean, we need a pump for, public works. That was $50,000. That's, what Farmers is asking for.
We did put a funding mechanism in place for this program. It was the places of eating tax. So we did, and it's 2% now. It was 1, now it's a 2. So we did intentionally put that in to fund this program.
Right. And in all fairness to the applicants, to all 4 and the previous ones, there's nothing on the application that says we're asking for this percentage.
Okay.
They just say, here's the project we would like to have help with. And then beautification makes a recommendation, BDC does too, because there's been some on BDC where we're like 50% maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't recommended 75% for everyone.
Well, if you recall, there was a time, and it's the village board that made these changes, when it was only 75% on State Street. If you weren't facing state, it was only 50%.
When I meet with the potential applicant before it goes to the beautification, I always explain to them, there's no guarantees in this process. It could be a goose egg, or as high as 75%. And that's ultimately going to be up to the village board after 2 recommending committees hear it, and a discussion ensues, and I may have to come back to you for more answers. And much like the caves windows and the recommendations of the 2 respective committees. And there's no guarantees. And I explain that to everyone I meet with, every time. And then I walk through the project, say, what do you got? What are we doing here? So they know that going into it.
On that note, let's say, okay, you're gonna ask for 75, but let's say you're only gonna get 25%. Is that gonna scare a business off from completing that project?
I think that depends on the individual business owner and their financial standing and their situation. And that has affected some limited, but few in the past.
Okay.
There was one project that, I'll just say the reaction I got wasn't one that I would have expected. But an award was made in a lesser amount. A recommendation by the village board was made in a lesser amount. I was proud to bring it. Any award or recommendation by the village board is a home run as far as I'm concerned, whether it's 25% or, whatever. But that doesn't happen now. In most cases, they're very receptive, and I don't know, working with some of them, it's been a pleasure because they're very receptive to suggestions and feedback from the respective committees. It's been good. So, I think it depends on the individual.
Okay.
An individual, so.
Years ago, I was kind of leery about the project, of this program in general. I have similar thought process as trustee Balestrini as it comes to taxpayer dollars, but as you get, the more you get into this. As an example, I mean, we meet with businesses on the regular, and one of the first questions businesses looking to relocate to the village is what can you offer us?
Just today that happened.
Just today, and that's what I was just gonna bring up. There are other municipalities that have the wherewithal to write checks if certain milestones are created or met within certain projects. It's a very cutthroat type of business that we're in, if you will, for lack of better terminology. So much so, I think you were telling me, Mr. Hedges, that there's some kind of group through the IML that's trying to work with all the municipalities and towns to try to get people not to be cutthroat anymore? Is that?
I'm not sure.
There was an article that you shared with me once upon a time about the fact that it's gotten so cutthroat that now there's this movement to try to make it not as bad.
You mean for economic development?
Yeah.
Competition?
Correct.
I'm sorry, I don't remember that.
Okay, well, but I could.
The businesses that you met, how many of them you think drove down State Street 3 or 4 times and looked at the condition of everything before they met with you?
Well, and that's the biggest conversation. And where I'm going with this, trustee Coates, is the fact that we don't, as a village, have a lot of opportunity to offer incentives, much like our neighbors do. And so I just ask, as we talk about this, I understand, and as we talk about certain businesses coming back and asking for more money after they were already awarded money and that kind of stuff, I understand that gets murky, and I understand, I get all of that. But you also have to understand the position that the downtown was in when the program started, the condition the downtown is still in, even with all the amount of money that we put in, which is to the tune of what, over $1.5 million in the last 5 years?
Just for facade, you mean?
Facade and our improvements.
Well, if you include streets, yeah, it'd be more like 1.8.
Yeah, so like the amount of money that we have spent in the last 5 years has been close to $2 million downtown. Also, one of the things that was the biggest driver and still is the biggest driver for a lot of our community members are having the businesses in town to support the lifestyle of our residents or to bring people downtown and stuff like that. And like I said, I feel the same way you do in a lot of different ways when it comes to this, but we have to find some balance. And in the absence of the BDC meeting, I'll just make this quick. Is the board comfortable having this discussion, talking about cutting down funding rates and stuff tonight? Because that's what we're being tasked with, trying to make a decision. That's why it was put on the agenda, and the fact that some of this is time sensitive, some of the weather, that kind of stuff. Some of these business owners want to get moving on all of this. Or does the board not feel comfortable enough to have this discussion? And we say, you know what? I don't care about the time constraints. Make the BDC meet in December, make it a priority. They have to meet, whether it be, whether, we just find a quorum and it'd be an odd date, it's not on their schedule day or whatever, they meet, they talk about it, and then they bring this back to us. That's the question.
Can I also add on to that part of this, the decision to go forward with this program years ago was that the village was sort of negligent with code enforcement, and we had our hand in creating part of the mess. So we felt an obligation to help out to fix the mess.
Absolutely. If you look at the 4, I have no interest in putting in windows in a 2nd-story unheated, uninhabited building. I'd rather dump it on State Street where people drive up and down and see it. That's my opinion. I mean, I don't care to put windows in something, there's no heat, there's nobody there, it's uninhabitable or uninhabited. Why dump 20 grand into something like that when we could use it over here on State and get more visual?
Yeah, I think to the conversation of do we delay, do we not delay, just something to keep in mind, because we had this happen this year, as Ms. Lyons knows. If the project isn't completed before May 1st, we still have awarded that project. And so when we pay it out, it ends up coming out of the next fiscal budget. These funds don't just roll over. And so the later towards the end of our fiscal year that we do this, for smaller projects like the sign, I don't think that's an issue. But for something like Farmers Insurance, we give a month for them or 3 months for them to have the contractors have everything done, signed off, and a check cut. sometimes that can cut it close, and now you're actually taking it out of the future budget, which we have this year.
Yeah, the Gardenberry project.
Can I ask,
So just a consideration on
Mm-hmm.
if, whether you want to delay or not the discussion.
are all the business owners aware of, well, obviously they're aware that we have $100,000 budgeted. Are they aware of the, I guess, for lack of a better term, the running total of how much is left in that budget for the year before they apply? Like, are they aware that we only have 51,000?
No, we have 48.
Oh, I'm sorry, 48,000.
We've,
Funds remaining 51,675.
Oh, you're right, I'm sorry.
and we've talked about that too. We don't, again, that's what the dynamic of the beautification committee is they take all the projects, go to the next level, they discuss the funding under our strict orders, if you will, right? And to the BDC, they discuss the funding mechanisms, and then they decide whether or not projects move forward or not. Again, this was a matter of, most businesses don't have fiscals that end, or that end in April, right? Most businesses are at the end of the year, so if they need to get movement on something,
Right.
it's December. So I guess my conversation is, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Do we want to talk about this tonight as a board, or is it gotta go back to BDC? That's what we need to find out, otherwise we're spinning our wheels.
I've done some math and I have a recommendation to throw out for the board to think about, so. I
As
mean,
do I.
and it comes up with a
I think, I don't know if we're ready.
amount of money.
Okay, trustee Fodor, what are your thoughts? I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep forgetting about you up on the screen.
Yourself, she got.
You're good. I was actually interested to hear what trustee Palestrini was going to suggest and what trustee Robinson was going to suggest here.
Okay. I don't mean to be rude, I just want to
No.
make sure she is.
No, that's absolutely fine.
I'd like to see it come back to the BDC and review.
Okay, so we got that. Why don't we got, as far as different thoughts here, you guys have a couple of recommendations? Chew on it, I guess.
You got something to say? Go ahead.
If I give if I give a recommendation and trustee Robinson, that's just an opinion of the board, some of the board members individually, you don't have to vote on that. But maybe the suggestions that we have could be taken back to BDC then, and maybe they can come up with their own numbers as to change things around. So
You have the floor.
I'll go first, but then, and I wholly agree with trustee Code about the cake. I feel like we've already given them a huge chunk of change within a year. And I just don't feel that that's the way we should go. I'm thrilled that they want to continue to work on their building, but I just don't think the taxpayers should be paying that. My thought, and I'm just going to go down each one of them. The cave is a no. And I have looked at 0 at that point. Farmers insurance, because I'm looking at trying to bring it into budget here, so that right now we're 50% over budget. So how can we bring it down then? So my thought with farmers insurance was if we took off the 11,000 for the roof and kept the rest of it, that brings the project amount to $54,025. If we did that at 50%, that gives $27,012.50. So that's the first thing. That's the first amount, $27,012.50 at funding at 50%, not the 75.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah,
If the cave is a no, then the other 3 will,
it's still over.
at 50%, the other 3 will not put us over our budget.
I have not counted that, so I will, that's
Oh, okay.
definitely a possibility then. I guess I was trying to figure it out, but I guess when I looked at it, I'm like, why are we paying for everyone's roof? I really could use a new roof myself. And to have somebody pay for it, I mean, wow, I just think that really wasn't what this program was supposed to do. But anyway, I guess,
I struggle with the roof too, just like I struggled with patios and stuff, because we originally did it as a facade, no offense, and now we're paying for roof.
yeah, and I could gutters and.
I'm sorry, trustee Fodor.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, I thought you had something to say. I'm sorry.
So,
Okay, I apologize.
it's okay, moving down then, so we've got $27,012 spent. For stitching on state, this is their first grant coming to us. It is for, health, well, not health, but safety, for, wheelchair accessibility, all kinds of other things in there. And it's their first grant here, and I'm thrilled that they're interested in doing that. So I would do the funding at that one for the 75%. It's their first. And that would be then that's $19,350 for theirs. So that would be at 75. And the Magnuson benefit one, it's $678. At that point, $678.22. I would do that. When you add all that together, it comes down to $47,040.72, which leaves us an extra of $4,634.84. With that extra
I would tell you that we
$4,600,
have a couple small projects that might be able to use that $4,000, if that would be available.
if that amount was there. Or then a couple options would be to either give that to farmers to raise it up a little bit from cutting them to the 50%, to give the 4,600 to the cave, so they got something out of it. Or as you said, hold it for another business. So that's my thought, which would be to do it with the numbers I give, leaves 4,600.
I don't think, cutting it to the 50%, I don't think we should look at it as you're on 75%, we're cutting you down to 50. Like,
Yeah.
if you're presenting a project,
That's a language.
you almost, no, I know, but you almost have to assume that you're not getting anything until it gets approved. So not like we're gifting you all this money, but you shouldn't assume you're gonna get 75% just because others have.
Mhm.
And then again, I understand, yes, essentially it is the taxpayers paying this, but we did create that mechanism to fund this. So it is, you're a resident of the village and you eat in the village, yes, you're paying for this. But if you are from DeKalb and you come eat at the Copper Barrel, you're paying to fund this. You're paying 2% of your bill that goes to fund this.
Mhm.
So yes, in a sense, it is our taxpayers, but in a sense, we've also created that mechanism to fund that program that you can choose to participate in or not, whether you dine out in Hampshire or get food.
But that's
Carry on.
100,000, which is what we agreed to and what it's funded. And I'm assuming from what is being assessed in the community, it's making that 100,000. I'm assuming,
The 2%,
correct? 2%?
sure, we're getting,
We're
It's well over that.
I'm sure we're getting well more than $100,000 over that. So
Okay.
it's really not, I guess in
Okay.
a roundabout way, it's not coming out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Okay.
Unless you are spending your money at a local establishment, then yes, it's coming out of your pocket.
Okay.
But it's not coming out of, we're not taking it from your tax bill, essentially. I quickly ran 40%. If we were to keep it equitable, 40% of each business puts it at $52,200. We have $51,675. So if we approve all four at 39%, we're under budget.
Could we remove the roof? Why don't we remove what if we were to use your figure? What was the figure you had from removing the roof?
$54,025.
Well,
The roof was listed.
I think it all should go back to BDC
Okay.
for their recommendation, their thoughts and their recommendation. You guys are the experts at this. You see all the applications of beautification, sees all the applications.
So just on the sense of timing for that,
Yeah,
the next meeting of the BDC would be December 13th, which means this doesn't come back to the board till December 21st, which means projects aren't kicking off until January at the earliest.
We do have two members of the BDC here present. And Mr. Hedges, who's active in the BDC. I understand where you're coming from, but we're up against the clock. I think between your recommendation and trustee Palestrini's, I think we're close. And I think to your point, if we were to equitably do it at 40, if we were to remove the roof, because you just take that figure and then divide it by 40, you're still under.
Well, if you take the roof off, I didn't even consider that, but if you, then maybe you could put everybody at 43, 45. I don't know. I didn't run that number. I just ran a straight 40% for everyone, and it was really close.
Just consider one thing. The second floor of that cave is not being rented. Nobody lives there. Nobody is in there. It's not heated. Why spend the money? Let them come next year.
And it's not on state.
What trustee Palestrini said, I'm 100% behind her.
Yeah, I think I'm not for a peanut butter approach, although I think it's a good alternative to consider. I agree with the Magnuson benefit that trustee Palestrini said. It's like those type of projects, if you could knock something out and really help somebody and they're doing something small like that, great.
Yeah.
They've never applied for anything as far as I know, right?
Not that I'm aware.
And their first application, they come in and they're just asking for a sign. They're not asking for a project. So I think that's great.
Yeah, right.
Stitching on state, to the points that trustee Palestrini said, this is safety, it's infrastructure on the front, it's ADA compliance and accessibility. I think that's a great type of program. And I'd be okay with 75% for that because it's for the betterment of those that are going to there. It creates a safer environment. It also will look nicer, but this is more than just look nice. This is look nice and safety. I'm on board with what everyone's saying about the roof. Like that I would take out. And if you did that and you did it at the 50%, you can then give them 50% for that. And I would agree with recommending that the cave would come back next year for consideration. If I'm just saying, if I'm stack ranking, we have 3 applicants who have never applied before. One is safety, one's a small project we can help knock out. It leaves $4,600 for potential other projects that Mr. Hedges is talking about. And we're not saying it's a bad project to the cave, we're just saying we're at budget. We just don't have the funds for the project that you would have. And I think that's okay to say to people and say,
We're out of money.
come back.
This isn't the state of Illinois.
But the county put
Blank
their
check.
submission in June, and we had money at that point, so just keep that in mind.
Well, then they can respectfully, I like the cave and I like Gina and I like Dave. But they can come back in May when there's money the next time, if that's what they want to do.
This has become, there was discussion last year about making this a competitive grant so that they're all due on the same date. That's kind of what's happened here. They've all been collected because, and it's not because Cave's application hasn't been just sitting there since June. They've been making changes since June. So it really wasn't finalized until the last few weeks.
Thank you.
And beautification did hear it and made a recommendation, but because installation twice is easy. A quorum once and illness second. That's why it's before you tonight. We've got pending weather. We're in the Midwest. That's the only reason, from my understanding, that we're even having this discussion tonight. Bill, is weather a concern? Yeah, it is for some of these. So that's why this is before you. And if there's some that you prefer to table things until next year, so be it. We're already have, well, not halfway, but almost.
Trustee Fodor's waving her hand behind you.
I just had a quick couple of questions for you guys. One, this might be to Lori. What kind of return on investment are we getting from the money that we are spending on this? And that's something you can bring back to us later. Absolutely, because I know that's a big question, but I think it's an important consideration as we consider how we're spending $100,000. Like what is that doing for our community? What kind of businesses are we bringing in and how much revenue are we earning as a result of that investment? But my second kind of thing goes back to what my feeling is on each of these. I'm with you.
Me too.
Sorry, hold on, guys. Oh,
I'm with
no.
you.
She was pausing.
Oh, I thought you were
I
frozen.
was just pausing and waiting because there was commotion. Sorry. That was the teacher wait. Apologies. Sorry. So on the cave, as many have already expressed that we've already invested a lot of money with them. And I would like to be able to better fund more projects. If that makes sense, I would really like to send that back to the BDC and kind of find out what's going on with that. The stitching on state, I think, would be my priority because it is a safety issue. And as far as the Magnuson benefit consultants signage is great. I question their color choice because it's not purple, but okay. Just thought I'd point that out. But, you know, if we're gonna do this, I would like to see some sort of way, like Trustee Robinson suggested, that we maybe put in a smaller percentage and then prioritize those expenditures. That's all.
The type of approach that like trustee Palastrellini recommended, you're good with kind of those numbers, and how's the board feeling about those numbers?
Staying in budget.
Staying in budget?
Absolutely, I think we can stay in budget.
Can we run through those and I'll write them down? And if we're comfortable moving forward with that, we'll make motions to those effect.
Or do we want to let the BDC have that? But you, as you said, it was a planning issue. The cave is 0. Farmers insurance, subtracting the 11,000 under project amount, it becomes $54,025. My thought was to give them 50%, which was $27,012.50. Stitching on state to go with the funding of the 75%, so that would be $19,350. Magnuson would be the 75%, $678.22, which is a grand total of $47,040.72.
Second.
Well,
We have to do each one separate.
Leaving the remainder of 4,000, because you're writing it down, $4,634.84.
the board's comfortable with that moving forward?
And Mr. Hedges, you said there's potential use for that.
Yes, in fact, it's a sign that I think
Yeah.
beautification company would really like to go forward with.
Can I ask why one at 50% and two at 75? Is it just based on the numbers?
Well, because it's such a huge number for the farmer's insurance one, it's a much bigger, it's double of what the other ones are asking for, or triple, quadruple, what. Then you're looking at less than 20,000 for one and almost 50,000 for the other, if we do the 75%. So,
So it's just the numbers.
yeah, to keep it under.
Okay.
Yes.
They're still getting about
Just
8,000
curious.
more than the
Yep.
next.
Now, just as we're talking through this, the next thing would be a motion to approve the grant for the cave.
No, we wouldn't be.
No, I know, I understand that. So the best thing to do when I'm doing this, I'm just talking through it. Do you want to table it? Or table it so that this way we're not telling them no? And that if they choose to bring it back in May or bring it back after they talk to the BDC, then we can talk about it, or just.
The motion would be for the cave to come back and readdress the BDC in May.
Right, no, I know, but I need to figure out what we need to do with it on our agenda. Am I better to withdraw it, or am I better to table it?
Well, it's a question, is that the answer you're going to give them, or you just want to say no, and not this year, but come back next year? Which would be a vote to vote no on this. Our motion to disapprove.
If I can ask Bill, what do you think? I mean, you are the ones that presented it for approval. Of course, we put it on the agenda, but is it something that you think from the beautification committee that you would withdraw that one? Or would you prefer us to vote?
I would prefer it be sent back to BDC and reconsidered in the next fiscal budget year. No at this time, respectfully no at this time. I mean, that's the consensus of the board. We got budgetary constraints we're dealing with. We don't have the full approved 100, some sort of expense. We're working with what we've got. We've got other applications. Would the outcome be different if there was just one grant? Maybe, I don't know. But I don't disagree with that. You're using logic to weigh these projects. I get it. And you've got budgetary constraints to contend with at the same time.
I don't think that's patient.
I have a question for our village attorney.
Yeah.
Would your recommendation be to act on this with a vote, or is it within our rights to say to make a motion to table until the next fiscal year for reconsideration?
Are you?
Can you do a motion to table for the next fiscal year and like set a time frame for it?
That's available to you. It is.
Because I'm wondering if we were to vote, like, no at this time on this application, can they resubmit the very same application, or do they have
The
to?
numbers will change, contractor numbers.
Right,
Yeah.
so they're gonna have to resubmit anyway.
Right.
Okay.
I think that'd be a little complicated, frankly, we'd have that hanging out there until next
Yeah,
year.
okay, I just,
So I'm okay, I'm okay entertaining a motion.
Either that, or we could just withdraw from the agenda, or, table it indefinitely, if anyone likes to say.
I think that we should table it indefinitely, because if the word gets around and we voted them down, just voted no, that can be taken out of context. And I don't want to torch any relationships that we have with any businesses based on financial constraints in the village.
How about if we move to table it and return it to BDC for further
Review.
review?
Great, there's a motion that's been made.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Pretty diplomatic.
Okay, questions or comments?
I think there's a comment.
I just wanna make sure I understand the motion. So the motion is for us to table indefinitely?
Use the table to go back
Just
to
to table, to
BDC.
go back to
Table it
BC.
and return it to BDC for further review and consideration.
Is that just to have it go to the BDC to say we don't have money this year to do this?
Well, the BDC or the beautification, they're out negotiating and stuff. We're not. We don't have the money. It's not a
We're
bad
just not
thing.
voting, we're just not gonna vote on it, we're not gonna rule on it. It's gonna go back to the BDC for them to.
For holding it.
I thought we originally
For
said
holding.
for review for the next fiscal year.
And that's a conversation the BDC can have.
Well,
Does that change the
You could
motion?
be more specific than that with your motion, you could refer it back to the BDC for consideration for next
For
fiscal
the next
year.
fiscal year. I like that. Thank
that-
you.
The friendly amendment process, Toby, are you good with her friendly?
All over it.
All right, great.
This is where.
All right, so
The train goes off the rails.
we have a motion on the table to send it back to BDC for further consideration next fiscal year. We have a first and a second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Palastrellini?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson?
Aye.
Mrs. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe?
Aye.
Mr. Matt?
Aye.
Motion passes six.
Next, we have a motion to award a facade improvement grant to Roger Larson of Farmers Insurance for improvements at 242 State Street in the amount not to exceed, what is it? We have $27,012.20, which is 50% of the total project cost.
Correction,
But,
50 cents, not cents.
50 cents, oh my God.
but that includes also, since we're putting it on the table, is the removal of 11,000 of the original project amount to reduce the project amount to 50, to reduce the project amount under consideration to $54,025.
So I think we're gonna have to be,
Two motions.
I'll
Yeah,
wait. I'll wait
actually,
till the
you
motion's
don't
made.
really have to address the application itself,
No,
because
we
that's
don't.
100% of the total
We just
project,
have to make a
the
motion.
grant is all you.
We did the motion, we did the grant number of the cost at the end of it, which is the 27,000.
Okay.
Which is 50% of the project cost.
So just the way it reads now, what the new number is, it's okay.
If they want to do their roof, they can do the roof still,
Right.
but
But
we're
they-
looking at
We're not cutting a check larger than 27 grand.
$27,012.50. Motion to approve a farmer's insurance facade grant for $27,012.50.
And just one point of clarification, we will be specific because they have to fill out and submit invoices for reimbursement. So the roof will not be funded, that will be cut from our funding, they can choose to do it, but it won't be part of our.
Correct.
That was gonna be my question.
I was gonna say, I think we had to be specific, because that's why it
Yeah.
was brought down.
So they will be fully informed what this money, okay.
So we have a first, and a second by Mr. Mott.
Sorry, I should have asked that now.
No, we're good.
They will be fully informed of our
We'll figure this board meeting thing out.
rationale.
Yeah.
Okay.
And all of us will get there. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Clerk, can you call roll, please?
Mr. Robinson?
Aye.
Mrs. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe?
Aye.
Mr. Matt?
Aye.
Mrs. Palastrellini?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Okay, finally, no, not finally. We have a motion to approve a facade improvement grant to Stitching Estate for improvements at 290 South State in an amount not to exceed $19,350, 75% of the total project cost.
Second.
Questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Clerk, can you call roll, please?
Ms. Fodor? Ms.
Aye.
Fodor? Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye, cool, thank
Oh,
you.
yes, I know, code. Mr. Matt?
Aye.
Ms. Palestrini?
Hampshire.
Hampshire.
Mr. Robinson?
Aye.
6-0.
All right, we're gonna try to do this one the right way. Motion to approve, of a sign improvement grant to Magnuson Benefit Consultants for the improvements at 278 North State Street in the amount not to exceed $687.22.
No, 670.
I'm sorry, I'm reading it from the agenda, 678.22.
I'll make that motion. I have to go see her for Medicare.
Can I get a first? Do we have a second? Okay, we have a second. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Clerk,
It should
can you
still
call
be
the roll,
purple.
please? I'm sorry?
For coming
It should-
It should be, with the caveat that the sign is purple. No, I'm kidding. Ms. Clerk, can you call the roll?
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe?
Aye,
Mr. Matt?
Aye.
Ms. Palestrini?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson?
Aye.
Ms. Fodor?
Aye.
Now,
Yes, 6-0.
fantastic. I will now open the public hearing regarding the. Yes, thank you, Mr.
Thank
Paul.
you.
All right.
Consideration, appreciate Great work, thank you.
I will now open the public hearing. Everybody's favorite pastime on this board regarding the enlargement of special services area number 21 to include additional territory in the Oakstead residential development. Ms. Lyons, I understand you have some words of wisdom for us this evening.
There is nobody signed up to speak.
Oh,
okay.
thank
This
you.
is not mine.
This is, Mr. Ray hasn't spoken late yet tonight. I'd like to have him.
Mr. Ray,
Yes, sir.
enlighten us. No, we don't need to vote.
When the
Until we quit them.
SSA was originally created for the Oakstead development, it did not include a portion that is now included, which is the Weisman Farm, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
You did.
In 2021, when the redesign was done for Oakstead, they annexed at that same time a new portion of property, which is partly where the school is now on. Or a portion of that property is where the school is. I'm actually going to pull up a map to kind of help visualize this. So essentially, this SSA is already existing and it just needs to be expanded to include the new portion of annexed property, but not including the actual school site because that is a tax exempt property. So the ordinance has already been drafted to that effect. We just simply need two motions, the first being to exclude the school site and then the second to being expanded with the rest of this area I have highlighted in blue.
Do we have to exclude District 300?
They don't pay taxes.
I mean, essentially, if you don't right now, we will have to every time we do a levy.
And then the funds would, their share of the funds would not be split properly.
All proper notifications were made in the paper, all of this, for this public hearing. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Ray? I would ask Ms. Lyons, but she doesn't have anything to contribute. No.
Can you clarify then, so where the purple line, which is the correct color, thank you. The purple line goes, that is what the new area of the SSA will be. And then where the school is, where it kind of comes up with green and kind of comes across, that is what's being excluded?
Correct. And the new portion also includes this pond.
And we have to exclude.
So we're adding that little triangle that you've just highlighted,
Right.
plus the school. And that triangle at the very top is school property as well?
This
Yeah.
this property will be included in the SSA. It is a stormwater pond in the SSA.
So it's not
It's-
school property,
Correct.
it will be SSA, so,
Correct.
okay, and that wasn't in it before,
Correct.
okay, but the school was,
The school is not.
The school was not in Oakstead originally.
okay.
And
So
so
this right here, this parcel right here is the only thing to the north that connected to Big Timber previously, and then it was all south of that. And then they redesigned, they annexed all of the rest of it to the west, and now we're adding it into the SSA minus the school site.
So let's talk about the school site for a second. You're saying that, now we don't have to exclude it. That's a separate motion tonight. But that they don't pay tax, so if we don't exclude it, they're not supposed to pay the SSA. Or they wouldn't be due the SSA when we levy.
Well, I wanted to address that.
Well, no, that's not my question.
Okay.
My question is, that detention pond that is gonna be included, who owns that property?
I can answer that. We do. We do, and it will eventually be owned by the HOA, which is exactly what this SSA is about, right?
So the HOA would have to pay property tax?
If there's, yeah, if there's an event on that, in that pond where the village has to step in and make repairs because the HOA did not, then this SSA would pay to make those repairs. So that's why that pond needs to be part of this SSA, but the residents will pay.
I understand what the SSA money goes towards, and I understand because we had discussions in Lakewood that we almost had to, because that's a backup SSA. I completely understand that. My question is, does the HOA, if the SSA is this a backup, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. If the backup SSA is instituted and we have the percentage, and we're gonna talk about the favorite topic later tonight, is the HOA paying a tax on that property?
So yes, that property is assessed, as a retention pond. It doesn't have great value. It does, it's
But
not
the SSA
buildable.
will, the HOA will cut a check for it.
When it
It'll be
belongs,
part of their overall.
they will have a small tax bill.
Okay.
Then why would we be excluding that full piece? Wouldn't we just,
Because the school is tax exempt.
yeah, but
Shouldn't be.
that's HSA.
No,
This is
no, that school site is not part of the HOA. The school site,
Part of it.
I understand that, but that detention pond that's there is on the.
It's
looks
not,
like
it's
right
close
next
to the school, but it's
right next to it.
Okay.
It's
So
just
then
close.
Shouldn't that line then that we're adding to it not include that?
no, well, somebody has to maintain the retention pond that was put in
The
from.
school
Which is the
doesn't
HOA.
maintain it. The school, the HOA maintains.
The
it.
HOA would have to do it,
Not
not the
understanding your
school.
question.
Exactly, and that's what we're
I
putting,
don't
the
understand your question.
That's why it's being put in.
that's why we're putting the SSA in place in case the HOA doesn't. And we have to step in and take care of the pond, just like we have in every other subdivision that has an
And,
HOA.
and the rest of those did too, eventually.
But we're excluding the school, that's what I'm saying, we're excluding the
100%.
school, and that's that full property, but the school doesn't,
The school is just that property. It's not the small piece to the north.
So Josh clicked on two properties there.
But it's not-
Can,
It's not the pond.
we
And
will
just to
have to,
disappoint you, that's
Just-
blue, not
I'm,
purple.
yeah, I'm just, maybe I'm not being really clear, and maybe I am, and I'm just not understanding you. This is the school, but it kind of stops here.
No, it's all purple.
I know that, but this is not owned by the school, you said.
It's not the pond.
Ours is.
The pond is up north.
The pond is
Okay.
this parcel here, this is
Okay.
all school. Yeah.
This is all school in here too? Okay,
And that's the parcel we're talking about.
okay, because it's in
asphalt.
front of the school. Oh, you know what? I'm turned around then, because that's what I see then. I apologize, because this is what I was looking at, so my apologies then. Okay.
Now we get it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. We want you to be comfortable with
Well, I'm looking at it, and I'm not looking at the part of,
Oh, yeah. Does everybody know what we're talking about now?
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Olson. How much of that detention pond, how much, when you were calculating out the build of the detention pond as a part of that community, how much of the sizing of that pond was a direct result of that school district property?
I don't know the exact percentage, but it's more than 50% is being, the school is utilizing that pond for detention.
So in addition to those homes paying 85% of their property tax to the school, they're also going to have a backup SSA that over 50% of why that exists is also because of the school, who won't be paying anything towards that SSA.
Right.
Okay, I want to make sure I understood that correctly. So I really appreciate
It's
you
a
walking
great
me through
question. It really is, but really, the purpose, as you know, the purpose of the backup SSA is in the event, the HOA will own that pond, but in the event that they don't do their job, that backup SSA is there, right? To repay the village, basically, assuming the village will come in and make the repairs that the HOA was obligated to make. So I see what you're saying. In my experience, in the 25 years in the business, I've never had to.
We came very
utilize-
close to having a backup SSA get instituted, very close.
Oh, we've done.
We did.
We did it late.
We did.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, ground project, right?
Okay.
Because we control the HOA. for
Yeah,
But there's a reason.
my time on the board, we've had that exact
It
discussion,
does
because it
happen.
wasn't cared for.
It does
To
happen.
your point,
Yeah.
CHOA members are paying for the maintenance on that pond all the time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
With or without the SSA.
with or without the SSA.
Yeah.
Even
The
though,
SSA is just required by.
even though with knowledge of tonight that the school district uses 50% of it.
Yeah.
That's,
And that's an obligation the HOA accepts, right? Yeah, with the understanding that the school district is also utilizing that same fund.
anybody else have any questions, comments, or concerns? I need to make a motion to close the public hearing. Oh, I can just close it. I will close it.
Trustee Fodor?
Oh, trustee Fodor has a question. No? Okay, I will now close the public hearing. And then I will entertain a motion to exclude SSA number 21. No, wait, hold on.
You have to reopen our meeting.
Oh, sorry. We're back in regular session. Now, first thing I need to do, I guess, is have a motion to exclude SSA number 21, exclude the property conveyed to school district 300 in 2021 and now improve with an elementary school from SSA.
So moved.
I have a first. I have a second. Questions, comments, concerns? Roll call vote, please, Ms. Clerk.
Mr. Cole?
No.
Mr. Matt?
He said aye.
Okay, Mrs. Palastrellini?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson?
No.
Mrs. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
No.
Here it comes.
Three.
Aye.
Don't have any choice. It's
I know. this-
required by the county.
Kane County is going to make us do it anyway, but I fundamentally, I agree with trustee Kelly and the other no's. I think that they should have some
That
obligations.
school is a big asset to that neighborhood.
Oh, I know, but they should have some
There's a
obligations.
lot of value to every one of those
Oh,
homes.
I know,
300 is not an asset.
I know, but it's passed. Next on the agenda, we have an ordinance approving the enlargement of SSA number 21, which is ordinance 23-24. Does anyone have any questions? I will entertain a motion approving ordinance 23-24, enlarging the SSA number 21. Or on the actual ordinance now. We voted on the exclusion. SSA 21. Okay, then we're enlarging it. Now that we've excluded school district 300, now we are going to enlarge the SSA. So I would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second. Questions, comments, or concerns?
One comment,
Yes.
just correction then for on page 58, just now therefore be it ordained. We should have McHenry counties in there as well.
No, it's because
It's all in King County.
But it's.
No, the village,
The village itself goes into 2 counties now, so it needs to be in every one.
We're gonna be finding a lot of that. for the-
I know, and a couple of them slip by, but it's gotta be, so Village of Hampshire, Kane and McHenry counties.
We'll make that change. We now exist in 2 places. Okay?
Yeah. Who was the one?
Okay. Now, Ms. Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Robinson?
Aye.
Ms. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Cole?
Aye.
Mr. Matt?
Aye.
Ms. Palastrellini?
Aye.
6-0.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor,
Aye.
sorry, you want to finish announce the vote?
No,
I interrupted you.
no, you're great.
You didn't actually announce the vote. Did you?
Passed.
Okay, pass that.
All right.
With that, we would ask your consideration of a resolution approving the expenditure of $30,492.80 for the rehab unit process in the wastewater treatment plant. I want to let Ms. Lyons discuss this with you.
So first of all, my agenda supplement is incorrect. This is not a motion. It is a resolution. So just that being said, everything else in there is accurate. The wastewater treatment plant employs ultraviolet light as a way to kill microorganisms before the reclaimed water in the wastewater treatment plant is released into the creek. This is done in the summertime only. In the winter, obviously light bulbs freeze, water freezes, whatever. the light bulbs are moved to storage. So this is the time to get this rehab done. And Trojan, who is the manufacturer of the ballasts that we use in the current banks, is the only supplier of these ballasts. So that's why we have only one quote included in here. And then P&M, Peterson and Max, they work with another company called Piedmont, which is a very, I'll call it a niche business that rebuilds these ballasts. And Mark Montgomery, our utility supervisor, is very electrically inclined, I would say. He actually tried to take one of these ballasts apart and re-put it back together with the new ballast. And yeah, they pretty much explode. Their wires go everywhere. It's almost like a watch where, you know, like this, you envision the springs coming out. It's kind of like that. So this is something that's going to kind of bide some time while we're waiting for the new UV system to be designed and implemented.
Related to it, but not specifically, how much will it cost, because it's in the capital, how much will it cost to replace the entire thing?
Between 600,000 and 700,000 is my guess right now.
Okay, so this will be 30,000 and some change.
Yeah.
To be able just to patch it for the time being.
Yep. And it'll probably be, I think I mentioned in there, probably, you know, like, we're starting the engineering very soon, but it'll be quite a process, obviously, before we actually get that new system in place.
Was this in the current budget for this fiscal year?
It is, yeah, I don't believe that this was in the budget. We had some engineering in the budget for the new system, but not this.
We're purchasing these because the current ballasts are not functioning.
So there are, as you know, we utilize about 50% of the wastewater treatment plant. There are these lights. Each bank contains 15 modules. And the modules have, I don't know, there's 60 ballasts. So what is that? 2 light bulbs per ballast, whatever. But anyway, we robbed Peter to pay Paul. So at this point, the second bank of ballasts and modules are being used in the first one. So, I mean, your question is.
So it is a repair.
It is definitely a repair.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions? I will entertain resolution, the approval of resolutions 23-23, approving an expenditure of $30,492.80.
So moved.
Seconded.
And first and a second. Questions, comments, or concerns? Ms. Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Ms. Palastrellini, Mr. Robinson,
Aye.
Ms. Fodor,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Coe.
Aye.
6-0.
Now for everybody's set favorite subject, sludge transfer pumps.
Again, my agenda supplement says motion. This is a resolution. Sorry about that. There are 2 pumps that we're asking to have authorized for purchase. One is a replacement to an existing pump with a seal, and the other one is also a replacement that was in the budget and planned for. So the seal failure was not expected, but it needs to be done, or it'll be done as an emergency, and won't be authorized by you until after the fact.
Any other questions?
So not broke, but it needs to be replaced and it was budgeted to replace it.
So the one the seal that's broken that needs to be fixed, was not in the budget. We were not planning on a bad seal on that one. That one needs to be replaced or it will be replaced as an emergency, without doing it proactively. It's better to do things proactively. There are two, so the one with the seal failure, there are two pumps that feed the centrifuge. Obviously, if you only have one, it works twice as hard. That one's subject to fail, if we wait until the first one fails. So that's why we're going to proactively replace it because we know the seal is bad. And the second one was planned for. Okay. And these pumps are Moinos, which is Lay Limited is the only representative for the Moino pumps in our area. So it's kind of a single source type of situation.
Does anyone have any questions about the process, the pumps, the emergency, or the sludge? Hearing none, I will entertain a approval of a motion for resolution 23-24, approving the expenditure of $88,986.
Second.
Questions, comments, concerns? Ms. Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Palastrellini?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson?
Aye.
Mrs. Fodor?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Coe?
Aye.
Mr. Matt?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Right, next we have a resolution determining the amount to be levied for the 2023 tax year through real estate taxes and scheduling of the associated public hearing.
All right,
You ready?
yes.
I always love your presentation.
So this one doesn't have a big presentation, actually. Tonight, we're really here to estimate the revenues required, which is at $1,405,200. That is over 5% because of the growth that we've experienced in the village. When we reach the public hearing at our next meeting, we will go through the whole calculation and all those types of things. I will tell you that I estimate that requesting this amount of money will actually be requesting too much, and we will be limited by about $14,000. So I do have the resolution in my agenda supplement, bonus for me. And I do have Kane and McHenry counties, I think, throughout. So this is the first year we will have to file the levy in both counties, so.
Does anyone have any questions? Now, we are going to set the date of the public hearing for our next village board meeting, which is on
December 7th.
December 7th.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't do my annual, this is not a 10% increase on your personal property tax.
Right,
This is
so.
a 10% increase on the total tax received by the village because of new home development, new business development.
So the EAV estimates that were published by the county showed over $900 in new residential homes. And then I actually received a call from the assessor's office, the township assessor's office, regarding one of our commercial buildings that's being occupied with, I won't say, yeah, it's kind of a tricky situation, but they're utilizing at least a portion of the building without a full certificate of occupancy. Does that make sense? So she has applied that to the tax rolls. It kind of went in late after the publishing of those numbers. So I've included that in my calculation just to make sure that we capture.
And I just bring that up, one, I think every year I bring it up, but there's a lot going on in the discussions through social, through the news, neighboring taxing bodies. that
Are asking for 200%.
Well, no, are talking about actual tax increases right now
100%.
and discussions. And I just don't want our community to get confused and think this is a discussion on a tax increase when it's not.
We are 110% not raising your taxes.
That's what I'm trying to say, because there are government organizations having discussions of actual tax increases right now, not necessarily levy discussions. And so I just want to separate for for anybody who has questions about that, this is not that.
I love talking about levies, especially when I'm out to dinner with my family, because people are thinking that we're raising taxes. So if anybody has any questions about what a levy is and why we increase it from year to year, I mean, the easiest way I can explain it is everybody pays their property tax on their house. And our levy, even though that they pay their property tax, if we don't request a levy against that, we don't get the money. So last year versus this year, there's more homes to take the property tax or account for the property tax, which is why we increased the levy. We have to do it every year statutorily. If we don't do it, we don't get the money. And there have been organizations over the years that have missed their tax levy deadlines and not been able to account for property taxes.
Does that mean we're getting their taxes reduced?
Well, it can be, it
So
can happen.
the village tax rate I expect to go down again. So if everything stayed the same, you know, nothing ever stays the same, right? Your assessment's going to go up. If you put an improvement in your home, you know, your percentage of payment of this levy may change, but the actual tax rate in the village will go down.
If we don't pass a levy every year, we don't get to account for the property taxes being paid in the village. It's just a statutory requirement. So when you go on Facebook and you see the Village of Hampshire is asking to increase their levy by 10%, you know, and I want to raise my taxes, it's not even the same conversation.
President Reed, since you're discussing this, if we didn't do this levy, where would those property taxes go?
Not to us.
They would not be collected, period. We would get zero and your bill definitely would go down. It would just be eliminated from your tax.
And our general fund would plummet.
Yeah, we would.
$1.4 million.
And we wouldn't be able.
It would not work
We
well.
would not be able to plow snow or make sure you.
Get another end loader, or plow truck,
Or
new building,
pay police.
none of that.
And the people at this table.
But we would still pay 85% or 85% to the school district though.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it wouldn't go down that.
Because they're not gonna forget their levy.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, Ms. Lyons, just for Cliff's notes, what's the final amount to be levied for 2023 that you're asking?
We're looking for $1,405,200.
And the public hearing will be on December 7th. And resolution 23-25 encompasses both of those figures and dates. So I would ask for a motion to approve resolution 23-25.
So moved.
I have a first.
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Robinson,
Aye.
Ms. Fodor,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Coe,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
spouse.
Aye.
Yes.
I just want to thank you all for the heavy lifting so far. I appreciate it.
And now we do get a presentation from Ms. Lyons.
And now we get Ms. Lyons' famous presentation.
So,
Your favorite topic, Tony.
in the essence of keeping it quick, right? Let me share my screen quickly.
Are we gonna have the dollar in it?
Nope, that's not this one.
That's my favorite. Can't wait
That's
to-
next time.
I keep that in my phone for favorites, and my favorite, when people complain about their taxes, I always show them the dollar. I show them I do. Every time.
Nobody's mentioned it, but that's 6%. 6 cents.
6 cents of every dollar comes right here. All other taxing bodies get 85. Not that we're resenting.
You're 9 cents short. Oh my God.
Not sure why I'm showing that.
No,
It's not on my screen.
you'll have to do it next one.
No, it's not that long, so you won't.
Entertain motion to table. No, I'm kidding. Due to technical difficulties.
Okay, that's good.
Bring you another piece of paper. I think we got some of that around here. Here's right on this map.
All right, here we go. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so tonight is just a quick levy introduction to the special service areas. And these would be what we call our maintenance SSAs. Those that are either the village cares for directly, or those that are backup SSAs. So currently, the village has 21 special service areas, and I've highlighted 2 of them. SSA number 7 and SSA number 10. Those are maintenance SSAs that we'll discuss this evening. And then I also highlighted 13 and 14. Those are infrastructure SSAs or special benefit areas that are not maintenance related. So this is a listing of all of our current SSAs.
Those fall off eventually, right? 13 and 14.
Yes, they will. Yep. They go until 2035, I believe. It's still quite a ways. Yep. So this is just a map of our SSAs in colors. I will note that we will have a map change because of tonight's expansion of, SSA number 21. 21 was on my list, but it's changed, so the map will change. And then we do have some additional ones that are not included on this older map, like some of the newer ones. The Stanley storage and those that have not been updated. So the 2 that were highlighted in blue are the 2 red circles that I have here, White Oak Ponds and then Hampshire Hills, which is down at the bottom of the map. So I just wanted to remind you that just like our corporate levy, a special service area tax is computed on the ad valorem basis, meaning that it's based on the individual property EAV. So there's 2 SSAs that we're here to talk about tonight. These will require levy increases in excess of 5%, and we will be having public hearings before adopting the levies for these. There's a little bit of different requirements in that we are not required to do a black box for special service areas. We do not need to publish this in the paper. Just the normal posting of our agenda and the fact that we're having a public hearing is acceptable for these. So hopefully you can read this. I tried to make it a little bit bigger this year. So we are currently in fiscal year 24. It's very confusing because this is levy year 23, collected in 24, which is actually fiscal year 25. So, you kind of get a little bit confused. But essentially, we've talked about Hampshire Hills. I will say we neglected that special service area. The neighborhood enjoyed all the trees that were in their retention areas, and were quite upset when we went through and did the machine clearing. However, the detention areas are functional now, and we've made great progress in getting things cleaned up. So what I want to say across the board is our public works personnel, there are certain personnel, not everybody, but we do have personnel that is now herbicide licensed so that they can do both the grass and the aquatic herbicides, which brings that in-house and is going to save a ton of money. So in this particular special service area alone, we spent $7,000 this year on spraying, and that will be brought in-house. The chemicals are relatively inexpensive, and the SSAs across the board only pay minimum wage for our personnel. The rest of it is absorbed by the street department. It's always been treated in that fashion. So this SSA will end fiscal year 23. We're undergoing our audit. Field work was done this week. This will be in a loss situation because of the expenditures we've had for both machine clearing and then spraying. You will notice I moved stuff up in red here, which you can't really see. We did do some spraying, additional spraying this year, which is fiscal year 24. So that $7,000 is in this, this will be an expense for this SSA. But you'll notice the red boxes moving forward are zeros because I've added additional wages and additional expense where we're going to cover the chemicals and the labor in-house. So essentially in this particular fiscal year, we're asking for collection in collection in 24, fiscal year 25, we're asking for a 38% increase, up to $9,000. And then we've always shown the dollar amounts. This is a $250,000 fair market value home. So last year, the cost was $61.61 for that SSA, and next year it'll be $85. Any questions?
What service area is that?
This is Hampshire Hills, on Getzelman.
Yep.
So.
And then it goes down after that. So we just have this
Yeah.
year coming up.
So it still continues to go up. We're, so, you know, we're, a lot of this, you know, every accounting situation is based on estimates. So we're estimating the labor costs, we're estimating the chemical costs, and, you know, doing an inflationary increase over the years. We do, you know, we're getting closer, and we're getting closer again to getting the balance to, you know, pay, so that the assessment to pay the actual costs. But we're not sure, with all the machine clearing that was done, we may not have to burn, because if we can keep it mowed properly and do the herbicides, you know, we may be able to push that off. And then, you know, like we're going to adjust this every single year just to make sure that, you know, we kind of stay in line with what we estimate is going to happen.
So it doesn't really account for us taking in, doing some of it on our own without having to hire someone, with Public Works doing it. So I'm looking to see where that reduction is.
So it's in this line item. So you'll see, like, in the spraying section, like over the last 2 years, last year and this year, we've spent $14,000 on spraying. And, you know, I mean, obviously, as time goes on, you might not have to apply as frequently or as heavily, but we have moved that up into these two categories, wages and expenses.
Okay.
Those are in-house dollar amounts. Okay.
Our costs are coming down, but also the ponds are just getting in a lot better shape. Dave's done a great job with this whole team.
Yeah. And then our second favorite SSA is White Oak Ponds, which Toby is very familiar with. This one also, and Trustee Robinson as well. This area was also neglected. We are unable to do burns in-house. So that will always have to be farmed out. We wouldn't want to take on the liability, and it's a big, you know, you have to get IEPA permits and all that kind of stuff. So we leave that to the experts. But you'll see the same thing in red here. We've spent a boatload of money on the herbicides. I believe there are 5 different detention areas, all within White Oak Ponds. So it costs, you know, several thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. And we're again moving the labor and expenses up in each category and not paying for that type of stuff in-house. We do have kind of a every other year burning plan in place. This box is red right here for burning pond number, what we identify as pond number 1. That's not going to be able to be done, we don't believe, before April 30th. So it's red there, but it's moved to the fiscal year 25, because it'll either happen next spring or for sure next fall.
Do we know what 5 ponds there are? Because I know of 2.
I could get, when we come back and actually do the areas, I will give you that information. And I think maybe there is some confusion on the numbers. It's not that there are actually 5 ponds in your particular special service area. Somebody looked at the map and like numbered the ponds, starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, crossing over into like Hampshire Highlands and those types of things. So I think that you're accurate. There are only 2 specific ponds in your area, but they're not numbered, I think. So, oh, sorry.
I can't help her.
No, I know, but she's plugged in, looks like.
No, that's, I plugged Doug in.
Well,
Yeah.
unless he's got a better presentation.
There we go. All right.
Always saving, thank you.
Yeah. So in this case, we're looking at an increase from the collection assessment to a $250,000 house of $86 up to $99.
Trustee Coates, you know this stuff better than most. Why would we burn in these ones but not in the SSA 7 that we just looked at?
So these are actual water retained ponds, like there's actual,
We have one pond in White Oak.
That large one. right?
The large one. The one off of Panama and Centennial is,
That's not water retention.
not a water retention, it's a weed growth and mosquito borne pond. There's no water in it.
Yeah.
Going over to Jake, that is a cattail slough, that held water when I first moved in, has the whole water since. So I'm not sure where the 5 ponds are, but when we did this, deal last year, the year before, we were having a major increase and we passed that major increase, so we wouldn't have to increase it again. I specifically remember that. We wouldn't have to raise that again.
no.
So I'm confused here.
I can bring back my spreadsheet from, the last time. The dollar amount or the percentage of increase has actually been reduced because of, doing the work in-house.
But the dollar amount out of pocket per homeowner is going up.
Less than was projected last year at this time.
And when we first did it, we had a huge jump. I don't remember the number, 52% or something.
50%, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And we did that so we wouldn't have to do and go to the homeowners again. That's what we did it for. I specifically remember that. Now we gotta go to them again. So by the way, your real estate taxes have gone up and we're gonna get you again. And I'm having trouble with that. And I'm trying more trouble where the 5 ponds are at.
I'll get you that information. I'll see if I can find that.
Anything else from Ms. Lyons?
Thank you for the presentation on this.
Yep. Yes.
Can we get these emailed to us?
That's sure.
That'd be great.
Usually or was it in the next meeting that we'll have all the different SSA things?
We'll have it in the next meeting,
Okay,
but Ms.
that's
Lyons would
fine.
be happy to send it to you.
No, that's fine. I'll wait till the whole packet.
Okay.
'Cause that's the one where we get like all the numbers and
Sure.
when any of the increases.
I
Okay.
appreciate you putting this together for us, and
Yeah,
thanks
so
to Public Works for busting their hump as always.
I mean, this board is pretty familiar with my feeling on SSAs. But when I look at this, SSA 7, it's phenomenal that we can take spraying out of it when we do it in-house. That reduced the cost a lot. But for $3,500, we're gonna charge people almost $100 on taxes a year. Shouldn't that just be the cost of being a village? $3,500 a year? That's the cost to maintain 7. Like, there shouldn't be an SSA there. If you're gonna do an SSA, whatever, make it a backup or whatever it has to be, but $3,500 a year seems like,
Ridiculous.
yeah. And then to Trustee Coe's part, I realize that we may be increasing less per year on the SSA 21. Am I remember that number correctly?
No, that's the one we
21.
expanded.
10.
10. That's the second one you showed, 10.
Yes.
So SSA 10. But when I play the tape through of all the fiscal years, we're increasing somebody's taxes 15% every year. And then we have a positive balance across the top. So this isn't like a one time and then that's the right amount to maintain it going on. We're always seem to have this discussion that we're increasing everybody's SSA
Yeah.
every year.
I understand that, but there was also 15 years where there wasn't a whole lot of movement within the SSA's period or maintaining
There's no
anything.
maintenance done.
Not,
Yeah, but how's that the homeowner's issue?
Again,
They would have been paying it then, not, they're paying it later instead.
I
Because this village didn't do
We
our
have
job.
bigger chunks because we have to do fixes, correct? Didn't we talk about that before?
And we agreed.
A lot of the stuff in the clearing and the stuff we have to do is because we didn't maintain.
Right.
We're able to keep costs down because now, as Ms. Lyons said, more eloquently than I am, we're maintaining so the overall cost is a lot less. Had we done that back as a village, the cost wouldn't have been as much.
I thought that and I'll go back and watch.
It's frustrating that every year we seem to talk about, and it's no fault of Ms. Lyons or it's just how they've been structured. Every year I've sat here and I've looked, and every fiscal year we're raising people.
I thought that we
For these
had,
SSAs.
we had a plan. I think we're in the middle of it. Okay, so we had like it was a 5 years plan or something that we were gonna be able to get these back on track, but we couldn't afford to do it all at once. Raising everybody's SSAs all at once or taking that amount of money out of the general fund. That's the part I think that gets lost in this conversation, is the fact that if we don't have the SSAs, where does the money come from?
Oh, no, I agree 100%. But it was brought up that service area 10, and I remember when it was brought up, we were gonna have a huge hit on service area 10.
I remember.
And we did the big increase, so we wouldn't have to go to them again.
Well, I don't remember that. I don't remember that specifically. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I know that we can go back and watch the tape and I'll remember by the next meeting. Because one way or another, I'll be able to find out what the conversation was, because I remember how adamantly you were. Then the other part of the conversation was that other residents in that area, the thought was that everybody drained into that pond and that kind of stuff. I remember the conversation, but I don't remember. I remember us coming up with, as a board or a plan being presented, that it was going to take multiple years to get these things back on track.
And my comments aren't a reflection on the work staff does. I think staff does an amazing job on these. And I think to your point, Mr. Hedges, it was years and years ago that they were just neglected and they got into a shape of complete disrepair. For a multitude of reasons, I'm guessing, not because staff just didn't care to do it. I'm guessing there were much different priorities back then. So my comments aren't in regards to any of that. It's just, I look at the cost of providing services to your community. This is one of those that I think is that cost of doing business that we pay property taxes, or our residents and our commercial businesses pay property taxes for. And it just.
And you have to remember, those ponds are part of our water system. They're not just there to look at and go feed the ducks.
Right.
They're actually part of our sewer system,
Right, and we also.
or wastewater.
We've now given out $100,000 this year to businesses for the neglect that we've had for the past 20+ years on them. What are we doing to help
Well, but the other
these
side,
residents?
your point exactly is we have a funding mechanism for the places for eating tax. The funding mechanism for pond maintenance is the SSAs. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, I don't like SSAs more than you do. I mean, I pay into one, but we talk very eloquently about the fact that the facade improvement grant is paid by a funding mechanism. What funding mechanism do we have in place for pond maintenance?
But it is,
Property tax.
as trustee Coe just said, it is part of
Then
our
we would
water
have
system
property
that
tax
benefits the whole village.
I would understand that, and to your point, property tax at that point would fund the facade improvement grant.
So,
Yes, it does, 100%. It comes right out of the general fund. We came up with a mechanism to fund it, so we wouldn't have to take it out of the general fund.
and that's not why SSAs were created.
That is exactly why SSAs were created. So we didn't have to pay the maintenance out of the general fund. That is exactly why SSAs were created.
It's a use tax for the people who benefit from it.
It's the same thing as a facade improvement grant that we just talked about in the meeting. I don't
I'm
like
still
it.
gonna disagree with you on this, but I get your passion behind it, but I'm still gonna disagree. So I get it, but there's a cost to provide services to our community. We don't have a special tax for police services, but your property tax. We don't have a special tax for streets, comes out of your property tax.
Technically, we do. It's called motor fuel tax, and we get a percentage of it.
Motor fuel tax goes to a lot of different things, but,
But majority of it goes to road maintenance.
so it doesn't come out of our general.
No.
Goes to wages.
No, I'm saying we don't do streets improvements out of our general. We do
Um,
out of our budget.
Filling potholes and those types of things, but,
Yeah.
like any type of road resurfacing or something like that will come out of either motor fuel
Right.
tax, road and bridge.
Which is paid by people mainly at the truck stops who don't live in the community. right?
It's on a per capita basis, actually,
I
so.
thought it was
We don't get.
No,
cents.
we receive that on a per capita basis.
so I'm incorrect on that, apologies. But no, I still disagree. At the time, the SSA was brought in with a board that accepted a development agreement saying, we'll take care of that. And we're gonna take care of that by taxing those residents. I fundamentally disagree.
Well, I am not disagreeing with you.
So,
However, HOA is the same situation. I mean, in the development agreements that we just approved for Oakstead, Prairie Ridge, all that stuff
They'd be paying it anyway, just.
is HOA. And the SSA is just in case they don't do their job. Again, it's offloading that type of maintenance. The village agreed to offload that type of maintenance to a separate organization, which would be the HOA and their residents.
and SSA is not a separate organization. The village is doing the work.
Exactly, because there's no HOA to do it.
Yes, in fact, somebody suggested that, I think it was, Mr. Burklow, when he always comes forward and, like, he doesn't want to pay his SSA information. Somebody suggested to him that, if he would, organize and accept the property in an HOA, that the village would, be happy to relinquish the title of, to that SSA property and have the residents that benefit from, that take over. It's honestly, in my mind, I totally understand what you're saying, but the village is, paying a lot, maybe not a lot, but, again, I want to reiterate that, like, if a homeowners association is to pay for these things, granted, it would not have to be a prevailing wage or anything like that, but you would pay the going rate, for wages and, chemicals, those types of things. We're paying the going rate for chemicals, but we charge the SSA's minimum wage, for the labor that's done by our street department.
Right, and then the rest comes out of our general fund. It's not like we're paying somebody minimum wage. Like,
Correct.
to be really clear, we're not paying our employees.
We used to, and that's why we developed the minimum wage, assessment to the SSA's. But yes, yep, we used to hire, summer people at minimum wage to do this work.
College kids, when they wanted to work, instead of stare at their cell phones.
Right.
Right, trustee Coe? Anyway, I don't know where we're gonna go with, or I know that we're not gonna convince everybody. I don't agree. I agree with you to a certain extent that, I mean, it's the cost of doing business, but I don't, if you don't have an SSA in place to pay for this, where does the money come from? It comes out, okay, then what suffers? And what do we take out of the general fund? How much do
We're
we?
about to go into a budget process, so I guess we'll have those discussions. There's a lot of things that staff would like to do as a part of the budget, and there are give and takes and trade-offs. I guarantee you, Mr. Hedges has probably had to work with his leadership to say, I really appreciate you putting this together. I need you to find spaces to cut.
We're not
Or,
quite there yet.
no, I'm saying in every budget cycle, you go through that. That's just a part of the budget cycle. So to your question, you're absolutely correct, but that's part of the budget cycle. There would be those discussions.
And we're also, as a board, we've always talked about setting precedent. So I ask that you keep that in mind as well through the budgeting process. Because once you take that away, that funding mechanism goes away for those types of things and you're never gonna put it back.
It can't go away unless you,
Well, no, I'm saying, I mean, if we set precedent that we're gonna pay for all the pond maintenance and all that stuff out of the general fund and not assess property tax for it, or not assess the SSAs for it, then that's something that never comes back. I'm not saying I'm for or I'm against it, but I don't know what the total is. I couldn't see the total, but what's the total amount of money that if you were to take all the SSAs and add them all up?
Oh, I don't have that number in front of me. I would estimate at maybe $50,000.
So we,
about half of the facade program.
Mr. Kelly, I'm trying to understand your logic. The new one, the pond we just added to SSA 21 by the school. Are you suggesting that the village should be paying the maintenance of all the ponds?
No, that's a backup SSA. The HOA is gonna be the one
Yeah,
maintaining
but
that,
the
not the
residents
village.
are paying for
And we only pass that.
the residents are paying for the maintenance there.
They're
through
paying
the
the HOA fee.
They're paying maintenance.
Right, and so when they buy their house, they sign, and just like an SSA, I get that. But an HOA is an independent organization for that
Okay,
community.
so it's not the money out of their pocket, it's how we collect it, that you're objecting.
It's the fact that we have, as a village, said we will maintain this area. It's not a backup SSA, that we will maintain this area. And in order for us to do that, we need you to pay an extra tax for us to do that. That I have a problem with. It's because at some point, the village board accepted that land and said, we will maintain it. And then we went back and said, well, but we don't have all the money to maintain it. So now we're gonna, and this isn't towards anybody here. This is just me in general. So please don't take this towards anybody here. But then we come back and say, but for us to maintain it, we actually need to charge you a separate tax. And so we're gonna pass an ordinance to institute this new SSA to pay for what we told the developer we would take on and maintain.
So, I don't disagree with any of your statement. However, those subdivisions that are benefiting from these special service areas do not have HOAs that would take ownership of the property. So the village stood in and said, we don't want it to, I mean, yes, we did not, maybe maintain them the way we should over the course of the years. We're catching up. I think we're doing a great job. I should have put the pictures of the plants in. I'll do that in my next presentation. But there wasn't the mechanism for the neighbors to take care of their facilities. So the village accepted the property. Dave would like nothing more, I think, probably than give it back to somebody because it's a lot of work and.
So can an HOA maintain a pond like the big one at White Oak that's actually part of the city's water system?
They're all part of the
We would-
water system. Yes.
That's what happens up in Lakewood Crossing, and as a matter of fact, they were in a similar position as the village where they hadn't maintained it either, where their ponds were actually, raising in water level, and they had to come up with a plan
Well, we
to.
did some.
We actually did a
2
lot of
years in a row, we did
Yeah.
significant.
Big work.
Yeah, but they are responsible,
$20,000 level.
they are responsible for contracting the
We were gonna go
engineers.
back and do a whole bunch more, and then they stood up and they hired the same company we were using and started doing themselves.
So if you come back at our next meeting, for the service areas that you want to increase, will you be able to show us the homeowners area that's gonna be part of that?
Sure.
And if White Oak Ponds
That's
wants
actually the map that you just saw earlier.
now, what would be the process of, like, you mentioned another individual, and like, if they wanted to start up a HOA so they didn't have to pay this on their property taxes, if they were to say?
Would be the process?
Yeah, is there a process for a certain neighborhood to say, hey, we don't want to pay this in our property taxes anymore, we want to establish an HOA and handle and take this on? Not that I suggest, not that I would think that anybody would do it, but
I think they'd probably call a lawyer and get me incorporated.
I think somebody would just shoot them, because you'd have to get all your homeowners to agree to it. Good luck with that.
Say, I think the only popular SSAs are nature.
Or rifle.
Ms. Lyons, when we're talking about the SSAs next week, to trustee Coates' question about like the 5 ponds and stuff, the fees collected from an SSA area, whether SSA 10 or 11 or 6 or wherever they may be, only go to what is physically within that SSA, correct?
Correct.
So if there's, because we've done some stormwater changes and drainage changes, if that community drains into a different pond, that SSA doesn't go to pay for that other pond.
So, too bad we didn't have tapes back in the day, but when we did the Highland Avenue storm, improvements and added their stormwater to the White Oak Ponds thing, I raised my hand and I said, I believe that those homeowners should be added to that special service area.
I remember that.
And that was not done. So, I mean, again, they wanted stormwater remediation. They probably would have accepted, a few extra dollars on their tax bill so that their homes.
They're dumping a tremendous amount of water in White Oak
Absolutely.
for zero charge. That's why I asked where that area was.
It's like the school district, same situation. where
Yeah,
they're
I mean,
dumping
and that's
into the
unusual
pond.
because I won't be able to say that they're paying for your stormwater. It might take some engineering. I'll have to coordinate with Tim.
No, but if they're not part of it, they need to be part of it.
Well, we also did the same thing on Panama. If you remember when we did the flood remediation up on Panama, we redirected them to the same ponds. And we had that same conversation. We talked about, I think there were 16 homes impacted. We talked about how much the assessment would be. And there was no, I'd say momentum to do that.
And maybe it's time to revisit these conversations if we're stuck with them. I don't know. Anyway, Thank you, Ms. Lyons. Thank you,
Yep.
staff. Thank you, board. These are tough conversations, but I'm glad we can have them. Next, you'll find the regular accounts payable. Well, to personnel.
Staff reports first.
Yeah.
Sorry, glazed over.
Please don't.
Engineering and police reporter through your packet. If you would like them to give a riveting presentation, or you can look through them and ask any questions.
I have a question.
Okay, let's just start there.
Hampshire Police Department October scorecard, down near the bottom of the middle section, assisting neighboring communities. It looks like we've had almost 200 year-to-date calls. Who are we assisting?
Everybody around us, it's.
Huntley?
Huh?
Huntley?
I'm not,
Okay,
I'm not
I
familiar
take
with
it
how
back. Let me
Huntley is.
rephrase it. Is the bulk of it Pingree Grove?
no, it's Kane County, it's all, so that would be any call that comes into us where, an offense has happened in another, it could be us going, but it's also, there's a hit and run that happens in Gilbert's and they send us to go check for a suspect vehicle that may be in Hampshire.
Okay,
So
so this-
it's a variety of different types of things.
okay.
Yeah, it's not just us going out and assisting other agencies. Actually, I really hear very few of those anymore, especially I can speak for days for sure, but while I'm here on days, but on nights, I don't see it on the summary very often that we're going to assist them like that, like backup.
Okay.
But we do follow-ups for them, which would also count as part of that number.
Okay.
There was a staffing issue in a neighboring community that was rectified.
That's why I asked.
They were relying on our police
Yeah.
force
Well,
to encounter,
And Kane County told them that's enough too.
and they were
That's
relying
why I
on us to
I
backfill,
understand.
which has been addressed to my understanding. Okay, any other questions about the engineering report or the police report?
Chief Pam, is there anything that you'd want to draw our attention to or that we should pay, that you want to make sure we pay attention to in your report? Because you take a lot of time to put this together, so.
I mean, the crime stats and speak for themselves. There's a multitude of reasons why you see, staffing or self-initiated activity going, down in the last month or two because we have a staffing crisis that we're in the midst of right now, but we've mitigated that through some changes in our shift structure. That'll be, we'll see some changes coming in that pretty soon, I think, as far as, it being fixed. As far as things to highlight, we do have our technology, all of our technology initiatives are moving forward. We've got the printers, now installed and we'll be using those, starting next week, where they can print digital tickets in the squad cars. We have body cameras in our storage room right now, and we just applied for the grant. The camera grant was submitted on time yesterday, as well as another recruitment and retention grant. They're both grants offered through the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board. We're told that it's nearly a sure thing that we'll get those. It's about $120,000 total between the two grants that we've asked for. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, about 120. We, staff, my staff, I didn't prepare either one of those. My staff did that and they did a great job. Really pushing some of our vendors to come forward with information to help us out. The body cameras will be going into service, December 7th or that week. So we'll be moving forward with that. So we're excited about that. There's also going to be some community open houses coming up in December for our virtual simulator. We'll be doing a media open house and then some community open houses after that. And we're going to schedule some kind of an open house for you all to come and see that. A few people have already seen it. It's very impressive. So it's going to give us a lot of valuable training. We have an officer that is being released this week. The last lateral that we hired in October will be released very soon. He's doing very well. That Robert Carreno. You know, he came from another agency, obviously with 6 years' experience, and he's ready to go on his own here shortly, so that's gonna help us too.
So release this. He's gonna-
That's what I was just gonna ask.
Yeah, be careful when you say that.
Release like,
Release him.
Release, we keep him in a cage for 6 weeks.
I thought maybe an officer was leaving.
yeah, that's what I thought.
He's
Like,
released
There you
into the
go.
field to be a solo patrol officer.
Okay, thank you.
My apologies.
No more training, David.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, that's I guess what I would like to highlight now, unless there's any other questions.
I just have one about the mental health calls, for service. It just, we had 4 this month and only 1 last month, but it's an increase of 3 in the is a typical, not specific, a typical mental health call that you would get.
Somebody that's despondent, you know, so somebody that's feeling suicidal,
Okay.
or a welfare check on someone that's expressed that to someone else, or juvenile issues involving mental health. I mean,
Okay, so it's not like they're out of control, there's a rate, I mean, it could be.
I mean, they could be, but that's typically not.
Okay, that's what I want.
Typically, it's that despondent person.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Any questions about the engineering? Any other police type questions?
Just one comment on the police. Chief Man, I just want to say thank you to you and the police department. I know there's a picture from it in here, but every community event that happens, your staff is always, I mean, all of our staff get involved, but your staff always has a booth or a tent or is involved with the community. So thank you for continuing that and showing a positive presence out there with the community.
Next, we have a motion to approve the accounts payable to personnel, but I don't see any, so do we don't.
right after the engineering report.
I asked 3 times. I'm
Oh.
sorry. Here. Would you like to ask any questions about engineering?
No, he has nothing to report on? No,
Can
that's
ask
it?
questions, that's what the
Okay.
mayor said.
No, I know, if there's something to report
I
on.
didn't hear him, Jay, I apologize.
No, trustee Coe, I didn't, nobody was really going through their report, so I let it up to the trustees to ask any questions.
I'm
But
good.
do you have any that you'd like to ask?
Nope, good.
Okay. All right, so, where am I at? Regular accounts payable, well, I don't, see accounts personnel is listed here again, but I don't see accounts payable personnel.
Nope.
So can I make a motion to table the accounts personnel indefinitely?
So moved.
Second. Questions or comments? Ms. Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Phillips,
Aye.
Mr. Matt,
Aye.
Ms. Palastrellini,
Hi.
Mr. Robinson, Ms. Fodor.
Aye.
Okay, so next we have the accounts payable in the amount of $570,854.05.
I just have one on the last page.
Last page.
What's sewer fuel? Just want to know. That's sewer fuel.
So it comes from the prior page, so Wex Bank is our credit card, and so that is fuel used in,
Thank you.
sewer trucks.
Gasoline.
See, I did.
Gas and diesel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not what you were thinking.
Well, I just was waiting for a good one.
Thank you.
One question on page 7.
Page 7.
He bought the Heartland Bank and Trust Company for interest.
Yeah, so, we purchased, a snowplow and issued debt certificates, if you recall.
Yes.
That requires a annual payment of interest and then one, annual payment of principal. So this is just the interest portion. Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you. That's it. And I do want to note, there's quite a few transition fees, so the full amount is not. Yeah, there are transition, right, not some feel about that.
Look at this, 300.
Speaking of that, I know transition fees are an automatic.
Yes,
Are we holding impact fees? Do we only release that when asked, or do we do a regular schedule?
Released when asked, as well as any interest earned on the account.
And we pay for sewer fuel regularly?
Every month.
Okay.
If we don't pay the credit card bill, the cards get shut off, and then that would be bad. So yes, we pay that every month.
Any questions about the accounts payable? I will entertain a motion to approve the accounts payable in the amount of $570,854.05.
So moved.
Seconded.
Questions, comments, concerns? Thank you, trustee Polk. We all needed a laugh.
He was serious.
Could you call?
Mr. Robinson.
Aye.
Ms. Fodor,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly, Mr. Coe,
Aye.
Mr. Matt, Ms. Palastrellini.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Trustee Kelly, do you want to tell us about the BDC?
So because of the way the dates run and the way, the fact that December 1st is a Friday, it'll be about a month till BDC meets. So appreciate everybody doing the consideration of those applications tonight. When you look at it, that is a ways to go. But right now we're planning to meet same place, same location, same time, same date. Any questions? Okay.
Trustee Kelly?
Good. Merry Christmas.
Meeting coming up,
Oh, yeah, we have a public works meeting Saturday. I can't tell you the time because I don't remember.
9 a.m. to noon, or whenever you adjourn. We'll have something to snack on.
Yeah. Okay. Any other, new business or other announcements?
Just one new business item. If we could, maybe the second meeting of December, start adding budget committee to the village board committee reports. Because we're gonna start the budget process, and I'm sure I'll be reaching out to Ms. Lyons to start understanding the calendar and discussions and when we'll start meeting. So there may not be much to report at the beginning, but just so it's on the agenda, and if I say nothing to report, then nothing to report. Thank you.
I have a couple of announcements. Anything else from the board, staff?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving. That is next week, isn't it? December 9th, we're doing the parade here again, as always. And so, just kind of feeling out the board. Board want to ride on a float in the parade. We're not going to throw candy this year at night. Probably not a good idea. But looking to see if the board wants to be on a float and freeze. Last year, trustee Fodor brought a chicken, so that was good. That lit up. So we were hoping that
Have a float with a chicken cut on
I'm
it.
gonna ask if you're.
I would welcome that opportunity to be present, whether it be a float or in one of the trucks.
Yeah, you had a pretty warm
It
one
was
year.
really good. You're up high. You saw perspective.
Put people in trucks there.
Yeah, we did last year too.
I'll go on.
Same,
Same one for the
With the trailer.
trailer and stuff, and then we just put lights on.
We had a disco Christmas tree on it.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, if you stare too long at it, you're gonna hit the ground.
What time is it at?
4 o'clock, I think we set, right? 4 o'clock, I think we get started, like, so between the 5 o'clock, the parade will kick off, but like, we'll be staging and stuff around 4, that
Okay.
kind of stuff.
What about the lighting of the tree? Is that
So the lighting of the tree will be Santa's magical finger pointing at the tree, lighting it up. So it'll be as part of the parade.
okay?
Santa's got all the
And
power.
Santa, I heard, is taking any donations for public works.
Oh, here, do you need the can?
There you go.
Santa's can?
No, don't need it yet.
The first year we did this, when it was the route through the neighborhood,
That was
we
neat.
did a trailer and we collected for the food pantry. On that, what does everyone think about doing something where, for the holidays, collecting food or doing some type of donation location as a part of it to?
We've done that several times here at Village Hall where we've collected like peanut butter for the food pantry or something like that. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we can, Does somebody want to take
It
lead?
gets a little complicated during a nighttime parade. You have people walking up the floats when moving and stuff.
Well, we're not looking to do
Yeah.
that. My foot got run over
Well,
one
I
year.
thought that's what he was saying.
No, he was thinking, that he said.
No, I said one year we did something like that. What do we think about doing something around giving and collecting
Oh, so
for?
not necessarily.
We did a
Not
half a
necessarily.
tree too.
So we did,
I mean, even if it's just big boxes out near the tree that's gonna be lit up and people come bring it like it's presents for the food pantry or something.
does somebody want to take lead on contacting the food pantry to find out what they want as far as like items and that kind of stuff?
They are pretty specific about what.
And then we can do a drive alongside the tree for that effect? Is anybody willing or
I know we
having?
want to, but.
I make a motion
we
for
have to
Aaron.
Be careful on what you put outside. We have to bring it in.
Well, we can bring it in the other night. Or
Yeah,
just
we
bring it
just-
over to the, or bring it over to them.
Right.
But
I
have
mean, I'm
that-
happy to reach out to get the list. I think Cub Scouts just got a list from them too, so I'll check with them to see what they have.
Because the last time that we coordinated the thing for the parade, the food pantry was pretty adamant that they didn't want.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be the food pantry. There's Ann's Angels that collects coats and stuff for families, so it can be whatever. I'm just thinking, it'd be nice to have a sense of giving or some type of way to bring the community together to help those that may need help during the holiday season with whatever that may be.
Do you want
I'm
it
okay.
just during the parade or do you want it like for a couple weeks, here at Village Hall in advance of that too?
I mean, we can do it that way too. I'm just I thought back to the first grade because we had where people
Right.
did run up and drop
Right.
baskets and
Last year, the District 300 food pantry followed us in their van and took donations. They got, as part of the route, they took in a lot of donations.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm good if we want to set up a pallet box, like I have a few of those I can bring, a pallet box or something of that, people can just drop their food in and.
Can we, because the question, obviously, it's nice to see it under the tree with a big sign on it, but you're right, you can't keep the food out there overnight and it snows. so
We'll
people-
just collect it at the end of the.
usually deliver it that night.
Okay, but I'm saying, this was, I thought it was gonna be extended.
Well, we'll figure that out. If it's extended, it would just be accepted here.
Because we could tell
But-
people to show up and please bring the food then to the village hall, to the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be part of,
Yeah, part of the festivities, of the
Yeah,
community
not-
coming together.
not collected in the parade route, but.
Yeah.
This is something our clerk Stuhler.
Stellar clerk, sure.
She does a stellar job in Hampshire.
With Trustee Cobb.
I was just gonna say that.
For your benefit, Mr. Mayor. Anyway, Karen is working on all kinds of special projects like that, so I'm sure she can expand our Christmas function to include a collection of food.
Yeah.
Working very
Again, it
closely
can be
with
food, it can be anything. If
James
there's
would be
another
on the phone,
nonprofit,
right?
you know, that really needs some help, maybe.
It sounds good.
Make it work, yeah, so we've got more information to come, but yeah, no, this way at least we'll know what vehicle to get together. Last year we used the truck, the same truck we used in the trailer, and then I came and picked it up the night before, morning of, and we decorated the heck out of it and all stood on it.
Oh, so you guys are gonna drive it too?
That's what we did last year, but we can,
Good for you, government.
All right.
you're more than welcome. But yeah, that's what we did last year. All right, so one other breaking news. I received a message this evening that, our former clerk, her daughter had a baby boy today at 3:09, 7 pounds, 8 ounces, is healthy, and her daughter's doing great. So our former clerk has retired and taken on a new role of being grandma. So,
Well, if we're in that mood, my daughter had a 6-pound, 2-ounce baby boy named Roy last Friday.
That's Friday? And he's handing out cigars after the meeting, right?
Yeah, I guess. This is number 6 in 5 years, so I'm out of cigars.
6 packs around the house.
we gave you a raise.
Congratulations.
What's that?
We gave you a raise last year.
Yeah. Those Christmas gifts are getting more expensive every year.
Well, I appreciate everyone being here. Thanks for I mean, I realize we have tough conversations sometimes, but I've always enjoyed having them with you guys. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have to take roll call vote because we have one in remote attendance. So, Ms. Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Fodor,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. Matt. Palastrellini.
Aye.
Mr. Roberts.
Aye.